Nestled in a classic New England setting amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.
And welcome to the Monday, July 15, 2013 meeting of the Falmouth Board of Selectmen. I invite you all to join the board as we rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A few procedural items before we begin our business this evening. If you have a cell phone or some other electronic device, please silence it. I'll make sure mine is silenced. If you choose to speak this evening, and there may be opportunities this evening for public comment, we ask that you wait to be acknowledged by the chair, and when you do, please come to the lectern and identify yourself for the record. We may know who you are, but that doesn't mean our recording secretary or the general public does. If you choose to make comments, also please direct them through the chair and not to the audience or any specific individual. We ask that you refrain from private conversations while you're here in the room with us. It does sometimes interrupt the proceedings. And if you leave early, please do so quietly, because if you're leaving early, it means we still have business to conduct. Finally, we do have a speaker's policy. It is a copy of which is posted on the lectern itself, and we ask that you adhere to it. If you are recording audio, you are allowed to. We ask only that you identify yourself if you are, and if you choose to record video, you will have to ask the permission of the board. Is there anyone this evening who wishes to identify themselves as recording audio or permission to record video? All right, with that, we'll turn to the first item on our agenda, the announcements and proclamations. We have the Friends of Falmouth Bikeway would like to present a gift, a bike rack.
Thank you very much. My name is Bob Fitzpatrick, and I'm here this evening to represent the Friends of the Falmouth Bikeways. We're a 501c3, and we try to promote safe and enjoyable biking in Falmouth. And the Friends have received a request to donate a new bicycle rack. If I could have the first, well, maybe I should set the lights out. There's the lights somewhere.
You want just the two red ones?
The two red
That should be sufficient, so, there we go.
What we would, well, that is actually the last one, but that's okay. We can go backwards. There's a plus and a minus on the machine. All right, now, as you can see, I have 5 view graphs, so it won't be long. We've received a request request that the town accept a donation of a bike rack to replace one in Academy Lane. If I could have the next view graph, if you'll see. Oh, well, hit a plus sign.
I have a plus sign.
Try the down arrow, or the up arrow.
Technical difficulties.
This is going to extend my presentation a little bit.
Well, you can
But
get started if you
let me
like.
say this. The bike rack that's, I will call it a homemade bike rack, is presently located at the end of Academy Lane, not far from Main Street, next to the Mexican restaurant. And the problem is that when well, there's a picture of it. It's in an excellent location. The town picked a good location for it. Unfortunately, it's unusable. And the reason, the next view graph, is that the distance, this is designed specifically to have your front wheel go into the front, which is at best not a good way to do things anyway, although some of the more popular bike racks do use that procedure. In this instance, the distance between the bottom and the top is such that no adult bike wheel will fit in it, so you can't even put the wheel in. So I think there's 2 reasons that Jay Zavala said, why do you want more bike racks in town? They don't use the ones that are there. I think that it's twofold. One, it doesn't look like a bike rack, but if you try to use it like a bike rack, it won't work. So having said that, next view graph, please. What we're proposing is the town accept a gift which is identical to the bike rack that we gave to the town in January, last January, that went into Peg Noonan Park. There was exactly the same type of homemade bike rack in Peg Noonan Park, which wasn't being used. It's very close to the restrooms in that area. What we did is took that out, or the Parks Department did, and then replaced it with exactly the same type of rack that I'm suggesting we use on Academy Lane. And that rack will hold 6 bicycles. In this instance, there's 6 there. You could actually use 2 more, but 6 is what it's designed for. Now, in the last, what we're requesting is the town accept the gift of the bicycle rack donated by Connor Cycle, and then we request that the Parks Department remove the existing rack and on Academy Lane, and that they install the new rack after it's purchased and delivered to the Gifford Street DPW building. And that is our request. Thank you very much.
Any questions from the board?
I think it's a great idea. The only thing is that I think it would be up to the town manager to instruct the DPW, not us, to remove and install. I think we're just accepting the donation.
Agreed. Any other questions or comments? All right, a motion to accept the gift.
So moved.
Second?
A motion and a second, excuse me, to accept the gift of a bike rack. Any discussion on the motion?
No, but just to thank the Bikeways Committee for their contribution, their donation, and all the other donations they make, and they make bicycling very friendly in Falmouth, and a lot of people come here just for that, so thank you very much.
Thank
To you
you.
and your methods.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Do we have any other announcements or proclamations from the board or the town manager's office? All right.
Not specifically, no. Thank you.
And with that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is an application for a new package store license. This is a public hearing. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that Falmouth Fruit and Produce Company Incorporated, doing business as Jack and the Beanstalk, has applied for a new Section 15 wine and malt package store license to be located at 800 Gifford Street Extension in East Falmouth, Massachusetts. Hearing to be held this evening. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative present?
We are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good
Jeff Oppenheim for the applicant. Here this evening with me is Robert Burke, who's the president of the corporation, and his fiancee Meg is in the back. They're longtime residents of our community. Their business started 35 years ago in 1978 and has been in continuous operation at one location or another in our community. For the last 2 years, they've been out by the high school. Before that, for 15 years, they were in North Falmouth. And when I came to town in '79, they were on Main Street, the old Hojo's, I believe. They are a green grocer. They sell retail and commercial to restaurants in our area. They have a salad bar in their facility. They have a deli. They serve deli sandwiches. They make deli sandwiches. And they have some specialty foods in addition to all of the other products you'd find in a green grocer. The location of Jack and the Beanstalk, which is the DBA for the corporation, is almost geographically in the center of our community. And it allows Jack and the Beanstalk's customers to come almost from, or really from every village in our community. And many of the people who come and shop there are either preparing a dinner, for guests, or they're going perhaps to a dinner and they've been invited, and we frequently get asked, what about the availability of wine? So that's what's prompted us to apply to the board this evening. We're trying to be competitive, capture that market. We're not trying to be a package store per se, but to offer that as one of the many items that we have in our store. We think it'll keep some amount of traffic out of downtown at this time of year when Main Street is very, very busy, and sometimes discouraging for people to travel all the way into town. So before you this evening is a new package store license to sell wine and malt beverages only. The hours of sale will be the same hours that the store is presently operating, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The wine will be displayed on shelves, which I'll show you a picture in a moment. They're existing shelves, and they're adjacent to the cash register and the deli counter. So they're in an area which is very prominent in the store. The wall area is approximately 18 feet long in a store which is 20 feet wide by 100 feet. And you'll see that on the plan that was part of our application. If I could have those pictures.
I didn't see that.
These are pictures of the section of the wall within the store, and they're labeled on the back. Now, Jack and the Beanstalk has 14 security cameras in its facility. It's really a state-of-the-art as far as security is concerned. The cameras are, the monitors for the cameras are in the office of my client. And in addition to the cameras that are in the store to prevent any thefts, we intend on investing in a sophisticated piece of equipment that is designed to detect whether there's any false identification being used by a potential purchaser. In addition, we have either my client or his store manager, Steve Rennie, who's not here this evening but has been with my client for 35 years and is an integral part of the business. Either one of them are at the location on any given day while the store is open. My clients owned a convenience store that sold liquor in the state of Florida between the years 2008 and 2010, so he has some actual experience in doing this. He enjoys a great relationship with not only high school students who go to Falmouth High, but the faculty and staff because of the proximity to the school. There have been no issues with these students who shop at the store after school primarily, sometimes during the day for the seniors who have privileges the last semester of their senior year. So the students are known to the staff of the store, and they've been very respectful, and there's been no problems. The school principal is aware that we're here this evening, and he, of course, defers to our school committee as to the suitability of this license in proximity to the school. We have letters of support from 3 of our neighbors, and I'd like to present them now to the board. The neighbors are Debbie and John Netto, who are well known in our community. Also Paul Miskovsky, who's a landscaper at the corner of Brick Hill and Gifford Extension. So I'd like to submit those. Yes, and also Patrick Gonzalez. So my client has been very supportive of lots of charitable interests in our community. One that's particularly close to my heart, the Falmouth Service Center, which is down the road, but also to many school-based organizations, VIPS, the After Prom Party, the Lloyd Crosby Scholarship Fund, and just providing produce when requested for healthy snacks for our sports teams. So now to the issue of the proximity to the high school. The general laws, Chapter 138, Section 16, specifically states that premises seeking the license to sell alcoholic beverages located within a radius of 500 feet of a school or church must the license must address the issue of whether that premises are not detrimental to the educational activities of said school, namely the high school. That's in the statute. So the board has to reach a finding that it is not detrimental to be selling beer and wine at Jack and the Beanstalk. The store and the school property abut one another. But the school itself is, by my estimation, about 800 feet from the boundary of Jack and the Beanstalk. So what's in that 800 feet? We have playing fields of the high school. We have the edge of the track on one side, baseball fields, and a lacrosse field, if you were to draw a 500-foot arc from my client's property. Or if you draw the arc from the school, then, you know, again, it cuts through where our sports fields are. There are no actual structures in that 500 feet where students are, you know, getting their education. So we are very pleased to answer any questions the board may have, any questions that may be from the public. We know that you have a very long list of activities and agenda items this evening, so that would conclude our formal presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you would mind.
We do have a statement from Chief Dunn saying, "Dear Board of Selectmen, I have reviewed the application by Jack and the Beanstalk for a new wine and malt package store license. A member of my command staff conducted the requested query check on the owner, Manager Robert Burke. The department has no problem with the request. However, he does refer us to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 16C, which I believe Mr. Oppenheim referred to, addresses establishments selling alcoholic beverages within 500 feet radius of a school or church. In the reading of it, it does not mention a school or church building, and so I'm not sure whether it's talking about property or building, but I will just read for the record what the Section 16C says. Premises, except those of an inn holder, and except such parts of the building as are located 10 or more floors above street level, located within a radius of 500 feet of a school or church, shall not be licensed for the sale of alcoholic beverages unless the local licensing authority determines in writing and after a hearing that the premises are not detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of said school or church. But this provision shall not apply to the transfer of license from premises located within said distance to other premises located therein." Okay. There's also, we were given from the ABC Blue Book, and it says, "Any applicant for a new Section 12 on-premise license that must notify by registered mail any church, school, or hospital located within 500 feet of its premises of its intentions. And an affidavit of the applicant mailing such notice and a attested copy of the notice mailed shall be filed with the local licensing authority." So again, if we are determining that they are within 500 feet because it's property line, we don't have that affidavit. If we're saying it's building to building, then they don't need it.
Excuse me, we did file an affidavit. We notified Mr. Suso's office, we notified the superintendent's office, and we sent a notice to the principal of the high school, just, you know, to be out of an abundance of caution, to make sure that everyone was aware. Those notices were sent on a week ago today, which was the date that I received a notification from the town of the public hearing.
It is it's in the master packet, but I don't think it was distributed to all the members of the board.
All right, thank you.
There we go.
And the church is also not within 500 feet?
No, I don't believe the church is. The town assessor made that determination.
Thank you.
Very well.
And so for the record, we do have an affidavit notice and mailing to the butters with the 3 return receipts from the United States Postal Service. That is in order.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question for Jeff. You mentioned in your presentation student privileges. What did you mean by that? What does that mean? Student
I will tell you what I know, and this may not be entirely accurate, but my understanding is that seniors in their last semester are given privileges of going off campus for lunch. Some of those students, some 10 or 15 on average, choose to come to Jack and the Beanstalk to get lunch. So that's what I know about that. I don't think it extends to anyone other than seniors who have that right or that privilege.
I think possibly my question would be, what do you think would have been the beginning explanation of why we even have the rule of 500 feet from a church or a school to a place that would sell alcohol? What do you think is the purpose of our state having that?
Well, I think it's probably out of an abundance of caution. It also probably relates to our, on some level, our puritanical footings of our Commonwealth, which I'm not an expert on, but I can tell you that, you know, our law derives from England, and it's been very conservative on some of these issues, i.e. the blue laws, et cetera. And I think perhaps the educational and religious community of the Commonwealth was concerned that the students and parishioners would be distracted, perhaps, by spirits. And I think we have many examples in our own community where we can point to churches and even, you know, some of our schools that are proximate to locations that serve alcoholic beverages. And I believe we do not have a problem with that in our community. At least I'm unaware of that. And I don't think it would be a problem at this location. I don't think that we're going to have students trying to buy or steal alcoholic beverages from my client, because he won't tolerate that. And if it happens, it will become an issue for our police department, like it would be in any other establishment in our community. Think of our farmers market on Main Street in the summertime, where we have people selling wine, and we have the world passing by on the sidewalk. I mean,
I guess my point is the fact that there is a ruling, and that comes from the state and it comes into towns. I think also to think about this, to think about Falmouth and what they have done concerning any type of abuse of alcohol or drugs. And we have been with our prevention program for about 5 years. And I think also of the national group that says it's a drug-free zone. And in some communities with some schools, they will put up a sign, and it's a large red circle and it has a line through it, and it says drug-free zone. And it's right in front of your school. Because in this, we are always going toward that point of saying that while we're educating children, we are not having something that is close to where they are through the day that would consist of alcohol. Now, it isn't any issue to say that our students aren't more sophisticated than they were at the time that this law happened. But I think there's a purpose to that law. And I think, as I can see just exactly where Jack and the Beanstalk is located, and I can see where the high school is, and I know the students go into Jack and the Beanstalk, I understand that whole process. But there's a reason for that ruling. And that's the part that I'm kind of thinking about.
okay, well, I think that's an important thing to think about. And while you're thinking about that, you have to also think about what is the argument to say that this establishment is any different from Cappy's or Windfall Market or West Falmouth Market. All of these places are places that are frequented by young people in our community, and the possibility of illegally obtaining alcoholic beverages is all over our community.
Absolutely.
And so we rely on our business owners to do the very best that they can to prevent that from happening. And this is a no guarantee type situation, but it's also a very much a losing proposition, I think, for any business person in this community to be caught selling, alcoholic beverages to a minor, or even to be in a situation where it's being stolen from their premises. And this guy, who's been here for 35 years doing business, is going to do whatever he can to stop that.
Okay, it continues to stay with me, there is a law that says 500 feet.
Right.
And when you mentioned the other places, there aren't schools and churches, so I'll relinquish this to someone else.
Well, we have Mullen
Okay,
Hall
but-
School on Main Street.
Let's continue the discussion.
Okay,
It's 500
thank
feet.
you.
It's not a question, but I do want to, most folks realize that most of my adult life I've been around alcohol in the form of earning my living through alcohol. I worked for Anheuser-Busch right out of college. I have been in the restaurant business for almost 40 years, and so I understand the temptations that are involved there. However, I also understand that it is a legal activity, but in this case, it is an accessory activity. It is not a predominant activity of this establishment. I think if we were to go by the letter of the law, we'd be shutting down a few locations in this town. We have Murphy's, which we just relocated, which was within 100 feet of the Mullen Hall School. We have the agricultural or the farmer's market, again within 500 feet of a school. Not only do they sell products, wines there, but they sample those products in the open air. And it's a sampling activity. We also had, for those folks on the board who have a recollection, White Hen Pantry, which was across from the library. Also had a beer and wine license, again an accessory business within 500 feet of the school. I don't think that, it's based on the statute, and the statute basically says it has to be detrimental to learning, and I don't know how this would be detrimental to learning. My questions and my scenarios are that this is an agricultural zone. It's an agricultural business. I do want to disclose, first of all, that I frequent this store as a purchaser. I frequent Stop and Shop, Windfall Market, and many other stores in this community. I also happen to buy local. I buy wholesale fruit and produce from him, just as I do from fish purveyors in this community, as well as other purveyors in this community. I think that someone who's been in this community for this long a period of time, some 35 years running a reputable business, someone that probably contributes to every particular organization in some form or fashion, that we have to make a judgment of character and a judgment of whether it would be detrimental to education. The word liquor is not detrimental. The misuse of it is detrimental. What are we going to teach our kids? You know what? We're going to teach them that it doesn't exist. You know, that's not reality. Reality is that it exists. And reality is that we teach them that you don't abuse it, that you have to be 21 years old to consume it, and there are ramifications if you don't live by those particular standards. And I don't think that saying that we're going to shelter you, especially when they get to the age and stage of a high school, that we're going to shelter you that you can't see it, because that's not reality. They go into many a store and many a location. Incidentally, these licenses are regulated by the state, not like not like pouring licenses. There are only 2 additional beer and wine licenses available in this community. This is one of the 2 that is still available. So I don't think it's a scourge, and I look at the law and say that the law says that it has to be detrimental to education. I want someone to prove to me that it's detrimental to the education of those individuals there at the school.
Just to clarify, my underreading of the law is we actually have to state it is not detrimental. It is, the onus is on us if we grant this license, if we determine it's within 500 feet of the school. And I would still say, when I did my research, it's very clear it is from the, as the crow flies, nearest premises of the building of the establishment to the school building. And I don't think we're actually within the 500, and I think the ABC would come back and say, actually, the law does not apply because you're not close enough.
Okay.
Additional
If I may.
questions?
The determination of the distance from the school is always made by the assessor's office, and they make that determination and they file a certification to the abutters, which they have done. And there is a certification that says that it is within 500 feet of the school. I mean, we don't contest that. I
Okay.
mean, that's what the assessor's office does, so they make that determination and certify it for the record. Is that correct?
Well, I think that there needs to be a distinction made between the real estate and the structure.
Oh, well,
Okay,
which
that's
the
really what I
property
think
line
Mr.
is
Jones
what
is
we're
trying
referring
to distinguish here. I mean, clearly, we share a property line, so, properties touch properties, but the distance between the structures, we think is like 800 feet.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I had this conversation with Trish Favuli today because I wanted to be clear myself. And really, the Jack and the Beanstalk is considered a direct abutter because the property lines are abut one another. It's not building to building, it's property line to property line. I mean, it could be 1,000 feet away, but the property lines could be directly abutting, or the property line could be less than 500 feet, but the building could be a lot further away. But it's my understanding from discussing with her, it's the property line. That's the distance.
That's
And,
why.
and it is a direct abutter, so it's not even,
It's
we're
a
not even
direct
talking about
abutter.
footage, it's a direct abutter.
Right. But I think, on a practical level, if you had a college that was abutting Jack and the Beanstalk, or a high school for that matter, that had enjoyed, a half a mile buffer between the two structures, I think the larger the area, perhaps you could conclude the less likely it is that there would be a problem. It's not 100% clear from the case law and from the ABCC regulations, where the measurement should be done from, okay? I think the measurement probably should be done from the high school on a straight line towards Jack and the Beanstalk. And the 500 feet from the building would clearly not be, from the high school, would clearly not be anywhere near Jack and the Beanstalk.
Further questions from the board?
Not now.
We will open this up because this is a public hearing to questions from the audience, and we'll begin with those who may speak in opposition to this. Why don't we start with opposition first?
Question for clarification.
Is there a question?
Clarification.
All right, come to the podium then.
My name is Patricia Johnson, and I'd like to ask the board if they think this use in that building meets the requirement of the agricultural zone. It's where if something is allowed retail use like this is a quote a farm store, is supposed to have a certain percent, I believe, of their revenue from actually farm-type products. And the law was changed a couple of years to be broader. In other words, the restriction on the amount of goods from non-farm produce type was eased a bit. However, I think the board should really look at the circumstances as to why that structure was allowed on that lot, 1 acre lot, I think it is. and make sure that allowing liquor to be, wine and beer to be sold there still will be permitted.
I think
Do you
part of the...
understand what my question
I
is?
I do understand your question. I
Yes.
think part of that, though, can only be answered by, for example, the ZBA or the planning board, because this board does not have jurisdiction over the use of the structure per se. Our jurisdiction at this time, and for this hearing, is whether or not this license should be granted. It is not over whether or not the business adheres to the state law with respect to the percentage of goods that are sold under the agricultural use.
Okay.
So that may be something that needs to be addressed with the zoning board of appeals or the planning board or the enforcement.
Building commissioner.
Sorry?
It's the building commissioner who makes that determination. And I don't know how it plays into your decision.
It can't this evening.
Okay.
By
Okay.
law, we're required to judge this based on the merits of whether or not this establishment should be given a license to sell
Okay.
alcohol.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions for clarification or question? In favor of or in opposition?
Well, I can't declare either because I'm a member of the Falmouth School Committee, and we're going to be talking about this at our meeting July 23rd in hopes that you'll still be taking this under advisement and allowing us to submit a written statement. But a question that I would like to ask tonight is, if you're considering that education only takes place within the building and not on the school grounds, then I think that may be a very questionable statement. Every day that school is in session, there are educational classes taking place out on those fields. There are gym classes, Project Adventure, and so, speak up.
The microphone
doesn't help.
won't amplify your voice.
Okay. I know it's for the recording. So my question is, if you're stating that educational purposes only take place within the school building, is that what is determining this 500-foot radius? To which I would reply that educational classes take place every day school is in session on the playing fields that are surrounding the school and directly abut the property of Jack and the Beanstalk. So.
The law states premises located within a radius of 500 feet. And I think the legal term of premises in this does not specify only buildings. And I do believe that is why this has been included in our packet, and the notice has been given to us by the chief of police, because it is within 500 feet. And again, it comes down to what Ms. Flynn said, that it's the property line.
Well, there is a structure that is closer to Jack and the Beanstalk that is part of the athletic department. I don't know the distance, but I would just remind you that educational activities take place outside on the playing fields. They are part of the infrastructure of the high school.
Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition? In opposition?
Sam Patterson, happened to be a member of the school committee, town meeting member also. As a former educator as well. I would like to inform you that we have, over more than 15 years, surveyed our high school students for use of illegal substances. And this community has a higher percentage of use of illegal substances than other communities in Massachusetts and in New England. And we were quite surprised when we found out these results, but it turns out that that is typical of resort communities where people tend to come and use alcoholic beverages and illegal drugs as well. And so the distribution network is here, and therefore makes it accessible to our youth. Our high school students are the highest at risk for illegal substance abuse, whether it be alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs, pharmaceutical drugs included. My concern is these students can't buy these things directly, typically. They have to go through a third-party person who's a qualified buyer. So what is the management going to do to manage this issue of adults buying the alcoholic beverages and passing it to the students? And by the way, that survey also indicated that they were going into classrooms for educational purposes while they were under the influence of these substances. a survey that gets conducted about every 3 or 4 years. We have those results. We know that our students do have it, and it does impact, in a few cases, obviously not the entire population, but it does impact education. Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? Anyone who'd like to speak in favor of this application?
Thank you. For the record, my name is Bob Burke, the owner of Jack and Beanstalk. First, as Attorney Oppenheim mentioned, we're not trying to get this to compete with the Cappies of the world. We're looking basically to enhance our agricultural permit and to promote Massachusetts vineyard wines. In addition, as Mr. Patterson had mentioned, I think it's shame on any adult who would buy for kids. I have 2 sons myself, and I would never put any teenager in jeopardy of a dangerous situation. So it's just to enhance the customer experience and be just a slight addition for the store. And I'd be happy to address any questions that the board might have.
I do have one question. It's a wine and malt license, but I keep hearing talk of wine. Do you have any intention of selling malt or beer, or is it just wine?
Not at this time. Primarily, it would be just for wine, and would like to primarily sell Massachusetts vineyard wines. And many customers, as Attorney Oppenheim mentioned, come in almost on a daily basis saying we're going to a dinner party, they're buying cheese, they're buying crackers, you know, do you have any wine? And as Attorney Oppenheim showed you in those pictures, it's in close proximity to the cashiers. It's very close proximity to the deli counter. They're both staffed by older people. Steve, my manager, is in the store full-time. I'm there full-time. Principal Driscoll knows we run a very tight ship there. We have a great relationship with the kids, but we've never had a problem since the day we opened. A lot of times they come in, they might want to buy something that day, they don't have enough money. Can I come back tomorrow? Sure, no problem. And sure enough, they show up the next day. And many times I've commented to the educators next door what a fine job they're doing with the students. And they come in, they're very respectful. And as I said, we haven't had a bit of a pilferage or any kind of problems with the students.
Any other questions for the applicant? Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of the license?
Attorney Oppenheim just reminded me of one point. As he mentioned in his presentation, we have 14 cameras throughout the store and in the parking lot. So all the adults who shop at the store and all the kids who shop at the store know they're on camera. As soon as you walk in the door, there's a TV monitor showing yourself that you're on camera. So we like to pride ourselves on our security there and the fact that it is a safe environment.
Do the cameras actually record it? I mean, can you go back and see the tapes?
Yes, I can. I can go back 60 days.
60 days.
I'd like to read a couple of paragraphs. This is from the ABCC Blue Book that I think it's in everyone's packet, but just some clarification, and perhaps we should get some additional clarification from Town Council, because it does state here that the 500-foot distance shall be measured in a straight line from the nearest point of the church, school, or hospital to the nearest point of the licensed premises, which raises a question in my mind about whether it's talking about property lines or actual the physical buildings themselves. The other thing, and this is the final paragraph in this section, and it alludes to what Ms. Fenwick said, the governing bodies of these institutions, meaning a school, church, or hospital, have the right to file written objections with the licensing authorities concerning the license. And then it goes on to say that we must determine in writing that the premises are not detrimental to the educational activities. And so as the board considers what it would like to do, we may want to take this under advisement in anticipation of a statement from the school committee.
Mr. Chairman, I would really make a motion that we continue it, because I think if our requirement in approving the license is to state clearly that there are no detriments to having the license there. And I think because of the fact that there's been very little public information tonight, public comment, or public testimony regarding the license, it makes it very difficult to be able to even give a reason why there's no detriment. I mean, you could have our own reasons, but we need to hear reasons from the community, and they're not here tonight. And I think the chair of the school committee mentioned that the school committee was going to take this up at a meeting, perhaps. And I think we need to hear from the school committee and from the school superintendent's office, perhaps, that to help us in a way, to give us guidance in terms of if we do issue the license, we have to be very clear about the fact that there are no detriments, or that no detriments have either been determined by the public or we didn't see any detriments. And if we don't issue it, I would think we would have to do the same and say that there are detriments, and we would need to know what those are. So I would make a motion that we continue it to, our next meeting is what, in 2 weeks?
It'll be July 29th.
July 29th, if that's an appropriate time. So we don't want to keep the applicant waiting either. So to July 29th at a time certain.
That's fine with the applicant.
Is that all right with you? Okay.
Mr. Murphy?
Before
someone
seconds the motion, I just wanted to ask that we get clarification from the ABCC where the 500 feet is measured from. Can you add that to your motion?
I would add that to my motion, that we get clarification from the ABCC, Town Council, and the Assessor's Office as to what.
Well, I'm asking for the ABCC.
All right.
They're the
What
governing
is
body.
the line of abutting?
I'm just asking for the ABCC,
Okay.
not the Assessor's Office. We already know that she knows that they're in a butter, but I'm asking.
So I would amend my motion to include information from the ABCC regarding abutting requirements.
I won't discourage the board from doing that, but they...
One moment, please. We have a
do have
motion.
it
Do we have a
right.
second? Can we just second the motion?
I just wondering about suggesting, the other question I would also want to put in that motion is, what kind of conditions can we put on that license for hours of opening? Because I believe when you were talking about White Hen, that was not allowed to be serving alcohol or selling wine and beer during hours that the school was open. And I thought they actually had curtains going on over the wine and beer.
Let's not try to complicate the motion too much. I think the motion that we need, a motion and a second. The other information, we can certainly make that request from the town manager's office, and that can be directed appropriately, whether it's the town council or the ABCC.
Okay, great.
So we have a motion and a second to continue this to the July 29 meeting. Any discussion on the motion? No. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right.
For the purpose of the hearing, it is staying open, we continue, so we're not close the hearing.
Correct. The hearing has been continued.
Continue.
Right.
The next item on our agenda is a joint meeting with the school committee in order to interview and appoint the vacant seat that is currently available. And for the members of the school committee, we have seats up here. If there's no objection from the board, we'll have a minor recess while everyone gets organized. The new superintendent of schools is here this evening. Ms. Fenwick, would you like to introduce her?
Yes, in fact, if she'd like to sit up at the end of that table, right next to Donna Madison Rose.
She could sit in the empty chair.
Or up front. Yes. Want to introduce her? Yes. This is Dr. Bonnie Gifford, who started July 1 as the new superintendent of Falmouth Public Schools.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I just remind the members of the school committee to try to speak into the microphone as much as possible. The folks here in the audience are going to be able to hear you, but at home it's going to be more difficult unless the microphones pick it up. So, all right. So this evening we have 2 applicants. We will go through, give each applicant the opportunity to introduce themselves and explain why they would like to be a member of the school committee. And then members of the board and the school committee can ask questions, and then we will do a vote. We have, you all should, there's a sheet, but it's simply for tracking purposes if anyone wants to write it down. And I will be asking for a roll call vote when we're prepared. So with that, we have, first on my list is Mary Ann Allegro.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask, if we do ask questions, if we try to make sure we ask the same question of both candidates?
Well, that's certainly up to the individuals who decide to ask the questions, I guess.
3 copies.
If you come to the podium, please, or the lectern. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here. My name is Mary Ann Allegro. I was born actually in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and educated and grew up in Lawrence, Massachusetts, so I'm originally a Massachusetts girl, but I have been around since. I have a Bachelor's of Science from University of Lowell, Massachusetts, which is now UMass at Lowell. And I also have a Master's in Microbiology from University of Maryland in College Park, Maryland. I'm a mom and have 2 children. They're grown now, and a wife also of over 30 years. And the last, we've been full-time residents of Falmouth since 2007. And we have been long-time summer residents because my husband and I both are employed at the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole. So we have been coming summers for decades, actually, to the Falmouth area. And we love it. It's a wonderful area. Anyway, I would love to be considered for this position. I'm very honored to be here and being interviewed for it. I think I can bring some insight to science. I've had a long time association with kindergarten through 12th grade education as my children went through school and later. I have co-founded and co-coordinated a very successful science fair in Slidell, Louisiana, where we lived for nearly 15 years. And it was a wonderful program. We grew the program from only 15 children to over 350 children. And still today, they are sending children to the state, the regional and state fairs from that program. So it was a very, very successful program. It gave me opportunity to work with the teachers, to work with the parents, to work with the students. It gave me an opportunity to look at curriculum materials, because the problem with the science fair is that it was such a complicated process for the children. Now this started in 4th grade, so we're talking children that here, I'm not sure if the science fair is a little bit older here. I know because I actually help with the science fair mentoring program at the Lawrence School, which is a wonderful opportunity in itself. But the materials were complicated, and so we were able to make those understandable to everybody. And so all the children could participate, and we're very excited to do so, often working on their projects in the summertime, coming up to us in the grocery store being so excited about their next year's work. So that was a good experience. Also now, well, we were in Louisiana many years. We were Katrinaed, like everybody down there, and that changed perspective on a lot of things. And so my volunteering changed slightly after that, not just solely with science in the schools, but also just working with children. I teach Sunday school here, actually, at St. Anthony's Parish. So I see the children that go to our schools here in Falmouth from that viewpoint in my classroom. and also from working with the children in the WISTEP program for science fair mentoring, which I also do here, and I have done since we've moved here. I would really like to participate on the board. I think I can offer a lot. I think I have some, like I said, insight for science and expertise in science, and also the mathematics that it takes to do that kind of science. And I think I really want to serve the children, the parents of this community, and do my best. That's really what I can say about that.
Questions? Who wants to start?
All right.
Yes.
And I do agree with your idea that it is the same question for each person. So I guess this gives a hint. Why don't you ask the first person? One of the things I think that everyone knows, these 4 letters, MCAS. And they know that the effect that that has in the classroom and in the community. We also know that there are many people who do not agree with MCAS in this state. Because we have it in Massachusetts, we are one of the top educational states in the country. But it also does something to the creativity of the teacher. And in your opinion, would you think at any time that you would like to see less of MCAS? Or you think it is just fine as it is today?
Okay, so from my understanding, actually, with the new curriculum, the new Common Core standards that are coming, we will be switching to PARC. Is that not true? And we will not have the MCAS? Or will they both be in tandem? Or is this one of the questions that the board will be facing? Is this one of the questions the board will be facing? It is. Okay. Are we going to have any say in it?
I do not believe that. No, I believe that is coming from the state down. Yep.
Okay. So in answer to your question, what I believe is that anything that would lower the Massachusetts standards as they are now would be very detrimental to the children of this state. Certainly the thought of lowering our standards to bring everyone in the country to the same level doesn't even make sense to me. I don't know why we would do such a thing. I would like a program that would raise everyone in the country to the level, because we have a level of excellence here. So yes, that would be troublesome.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
How can you personally contribute to build on what many of us in this community believe to be an exceptional school system?
Well, I think from my expertise, I hope scientifically. I've seen in my own mentoring that the imagination level, if we could call it that, of the students over the 5 or 6 years I've been mentoring is decreasing, I think. I think they're relying on projects they see online. I think some of their instructions are slightly complicated. I think I can really help simplify that, working with some of the science teachers, so that they will be more able to use their imaginations, yet still follow the scientific method. Instead of looking for specific items called constant variables, you're either a constant or a variable. So scientifically, that really doesn't make a lot of sense, yet children were spending a lot of time trying to fill in spaces and not just thinking about the project in general and thinking about just letting their imagination go wild. So I really think I could help there, to tell you the truth. I really do. And I would love to try.
Anyone else?
The reality in government is that, specifically in the state of Massachusetts, is that we're faced with Proposition 2.5, which provides for only an increase in the town's taxation of 2.5%. And that 2.5% includes not only the schools, but it also includes our town government's that. It also includes fixed costs. How would you propose to be able to live within the means, providing a good education to the folks in our community, meaning the students coming in our community, but also be able to live within our means so that we can live within Proposition 2.5?
Okay. Well, from the little research I was able to do, it seemed to me like we were spending close to $11,000 per student right now per year. I may be off on that. Those were numbers I gleaned from the internet, so those aren't official numbers. That's my guess. And actually that the the vocational school was much, much lower, less than half of that. I think that I obviously don't know the answer to your question because I don't know all the intricacies, where the budget's coming from, and what each item is for. But I guarantee you that I would do the research and understand where each item was coming for. Not only do I think we could stay within the means, but I think we could stop taking money that's not local and giving up local decisions to people that don't live here. Because I believe that's kind of troublesome too. We always want to bring money into the schools and we think it's more money, but when you do that, you're also have to do what other people want that may not be here in Falmouth and may not have that close association with the students and certainly don't know our students. And so I would do everything I could to stay within, not only stay within those budgetary means, but also make sure, I know the kids aren't going to lose, they're not going to lose their education if we have to stay within 2.5%. I don't believe for a minute they will. I don't believe it for a minute. You can maintain excellence at the same level. You don't always have to feed the beast more and more money. You know, I mean, if we need capital improvements, major improvements, another way we can work on things like that is to go to the community and fundraise. Sometimes I don't see why we can't do that also. If in a pinch, or if for a piece of athletic equipment, or for a piece of, that's another thing actually I did in the Slidell schools. Besides being with the science fair and working with that, I was on a science resource committee. We brought microscopes into the schools. We brought wonderful pieces of equipment that were donated from oil companies that just were in the area. We have the rigs in Louisiana. We had them coming to the schools and giving displays to the children, things they would have never seen in Slidell, Louisiana, coming with fossils that you might not see in the Museum of Science because it was their private collections. You could reach out to the community because they have, they have a stake in it. They have a stake in it. They're the people that live here. They want, when they go to the emergency room, they want those doctors to know what they're doing. And the only way to do that is to make sure our kids get a fantastic education on the way up. So I'm sure that we can be very innovative in working things like that out. I'm sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So I can launch in with the ones from the school committee. Okay.
Right.
All right. I have a couple of questions, and then two other members of the school committee will also address these questions to both of the candidates. The first question I have, and it's been touched on, but what would be your budget priorities in the upcoming budget process, which we will begin in the fall?
Okay. So that's, of course, a question that I can't fully understand because I don't know what your list of budget items is.
But what are some priorities that you might want to bring to this process?
Obviously, we would need teachers. So I'm sure salaries is a big part of the budget. I think salaries is probably the biggest part of the budget.
Yes, it is.
If I'm not mistaken. So teachers, of course, are going to be important. Operating costs of the buildings, I'm sure that's a big part of the budget as well. And the buses to get the kids to and from school. Those are things I can think of off the top of my head. I'm afraid, again, with implementation of the new programs that seem to be coming down the pike, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of technological changes, potentially, which might add a great amount of money to the budget. I'm not saying that should be a priority. I'm saying that should be something that will be discussed. I'm sure that will be discussed among the committee members. Do you have something a little more specific of something that?
No, and short answers are quite appreciated, so that's
Sure.
fine.
Okay,
I know
I'm
that
just
you
thinking of
haven't
most
studied
basic
the
things.
budget, so that's
Right.
quite understandable. But I just was curious if there were things that you were thinking about that you wanted to bring to the committee as part of the budget process.
To add to the budget?
Yep. Or take
Probably
away.
not. Or, yes, take away, I'm sure with study, I might be able to think of things to take away, but to add to, I can't imagine
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
Yes.
The next question is, what do you consider is the proper role of the school committee in furthering the education of Falmouth's children?
I think curriculum, I think, is a huge role for the school committee. I would assume that to be a very large role for the school committee. And I'm sure they take it very seriously. I also think that part of their role should be to bring parents into the conversation so that they know what's going on at school, they know what their children are learning and how they're learning it. I think that's very, very important also. So that when you say things like, did you hear about the Common Core, or whatever it might happen to be, and every parent you speak to says, what are you talking about? I don't know what that is. I think that maybe the school committee can be a venue for bringing parents more into the discussion. I'm sure you guys are really busy already, I understand that. So maybe if I'm appointed, I'll help to do that. I would love to get a dialogue going there with the parents. So curriculum and that, of course the budget, because now you're a bridge also between the taxpayers and the schools, and the teachers and principals and the schools. So yes, obviously the budget I think is very important. And in that respect, I think you also need to know, and again, I haven't seen the budget, so I don't know specifically. When we get at town hall, it's a little different. It's kind of a few lines and there's a big budget. I'm sure that it would be very important to know all the items on that budget so that you can see where you might be cutting costs if possible. Every organization has too much overhead probably in this day and age, so I'm sure that there'll be places where it could be trimmed down somewhat. I believe that's also important. And also the bridge with the teachers, to the teachers, the principals, superintendent, so that everyone is on the same page. I think the school committee serves the entire system, actually, and that gives it a very important role in our community and in our town.
Okay, thank you. One final question I have, and then I'm going to turn it over to two of my colleagues. What are the most important things a Falmouth student can learn in preparing for a productive and satisfying life? This is the world peace question.
Okay, and that won't be my answer. How to spell, how to read proficiently, how to write eloquently, if possible, an understanding of the logic of mathematics and the truth of science. They need to understand that things aren't always given to you, but that you can achieve anything. And they need to use their imaginations so that they can flourish and not be afraid to take risks when they get out there. And I think that's a tall order, what we must teach them. I think it's really important in a tall order. And I would make it my point to be sure that those things are taught to our kids. Because when they come out, we're going to be depending on them.
Thank you. Sam, do you still want to ask your question in light of Rebecca?
Yes, I would like to do.
Okay,
just
all right.
tease out
Okay.
one aspect.
And if you,
Rebecca referred to MCAS, but oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I know Rebecca referred to MCAS, but underlying MCAS is more. And so my question to you is, what is your assessment of the effectiveness of the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks and standards now applied to most classroom and instruction?
As of last year, as of what we have had up to this point. Well, I'll be honest, I know we are near the tops in the country. I understand that, but I believe we could be better than that. I really do. I think some of the changes made in mathematics have slowed the progress of learning in mathematics. And sometimes the old ways are good. And they produced incredible physicists and mathematicians and scientists. And I think that we could do better than we're even doing right now. And I'm not saying we're not highest in the country, but everything's relative. So I would like that to be better. I think reading, I think we've had good programs in the past. We've had excellent literature programs. I understand that might be changing quite a bit. But I do feel that, again, children can be more proficient in reading than they are. And not just that, I think that they don't sometimes have the love of literature that they should. you always hear, I mean, we have nieces and nephews in the system and growing up, and, oh, I don't want to read, I hate to read. I hate to hear that kind of thing. So, again, we're great, but I think there we could also be better. I think we could also be a little bit better. Do you want me to go into separate subjects, or? Okay, so basically what I'm saying is, I know we're really good, I think we could be better. Oh, one more thing, I think we could be a lot better on, honestly, is American history and understanding our form of government. Because I'm not sure that all the children are up to speed on our American history. That's something that I am a bit concerned about. I am a bit concerned about in our system. They've gone to world geography courses and world history courses that have spent a lot of time on some subjects, and I'm not sure enough time on our own country. So I think that's also important.
Okay, and last question will come from Emily Davern.
I'm actually going to pass in the interest of time, I think.
All right, thank you very much. That's all from us.
Any last questions here?
Sorry.
Actually, I do have one question
Yes.
that popped into my head that I'm curious about what you think the school committee could do, or you as a member of the school committee could do, in order to further, you've mentioned science, but what about technology? It used to be that we would prepare children to work in factories when they got out of school, and we had a very large and burgeoning middle class that was based on manufacturing. Mm-hmm. Manufacturing has become the computer industry of today, essentially, that it's more programming and understanding the digital world. What do you think the school committee could do, or you as an individual on the school committee could do, to further the teaching or the learning of digital technology in our schools, and not necessarily the use of it, like how to use Microsoft Word, but actually teaching students how to create?
Programming.
Among
Those type
other
of things.
things.
So you're talking digital specifically, not just technology and high tech. You're talking mostly computer.
Well, that's the industry I work in, but
Okay.
enlighten me from a broad perspective.
So either way, and again, as the school committee, at the high school level, if we're talking that, maybe offering a course, bringing someone in, a professional to teach it, if we don't have teachers that are capable of teaching it. Maybe partnering with a company who would like to take on some students as apprentice levels, or I can't think of the word right now, I'm sorry to say. Intern, thank you. Summertime interns that could take on interns or student interns for the kids that are doing well, or the kids that are higher in grades, and that might be a very nice way to do it. And also, even during their own science fairs, maybe going to some of these tech companies and asking some of them to come and mentor some children specifically who are interested in computers and computer technology. We had kids in science fair again in Slidell that were making computers they were making computers for the fun of it. They just loved doing things like that, and they literally were making them out of things in their garage, more or less, and that was their project. So maybe that's another way. So there are at least 3 ways. I'm sure there are many more that we can come up with, and we can probably accommodate maybe dozens of children that way that have the interest to go forward in that area.
Thank you.
Can I ask
One more
final
question.
Yes.
At what level do you think civics should be brought into the curriculum?
What grade level?
I'm not saying should it be, at what level should it be?
You mean what grade level?
Right.
Sure. Certainly, I think certainly by junior high.
By junior high.
Certainly by junior high. Absolutely. They're not too, and it can be introduced lower in very small ways and understandable ways, but I think certainly by junior high they should be able to comprehend our form of government and then build on it, from there, but they should certainly know the Constitution and that we have a Declaration of Independence, things like that, and understand we have a republic.
Last question? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next on our list, the other applicant we have this evening is Alan Jacobs.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Alan Jacobs. I have been a resident of Falmouth since 1973. I originally moved here to be a teacher at Falmouth High School. I taught at Falmouth High School for 7 years. I have a rising third grader at Mullen School right now. I have been a member of the district's Technology Advisory Board. I've been a member of the Mullen School Council, and I was a member of the Lawrence School Innovation Plan Technology Subcommittee. I volunteer in my son's classroom. I volunteered in his classroom since he was in kindergarten, at least an hour or two a week. I volunteer as a coach at the Falmouth Recreation Department. I've coached basketball, baseball, and soccer. I also teach at the Seven Stars Academy of Martial Arts. I have a third-degree black belt, and so I teach karate classes there with kids. I have a class right now of 14 students between the ages of 7 to 12 years old. After I left teaching at Falmouth High School, I embarked on a career in the education arena, if you will. I moved into Addison Wesley Publishing Company, their textbook division. I rose to the rank of executive editor there. I was there for about 8 years. I then moved on to some technology companies, and over about the next 20 years, worked at a series of technology companies leading their global education programs. So I've had the opportunity to work with high schools, colleges, universities, virtually in every state in the United States, and probably half the countries in the world, looking at the educational experience, talking to professors. I was a member of the American Society of Engineering Educators Corporate Member Council. I was on the board of directors for there. I've been on the board of directors for the American Society of Engineering Educators, the International Federation of Engineering Education Societies. Both of those gave me the opportunities to have a lot of experience working with college professors, specifically in engineering education. I also worked for a company in the media production, and so I was on the board of directors for the International Digital Arts Association. Let's see, what else can I tell you about me? I am a local business owner. I left the corporate world about 2 years ago, and I founded Falmouth Mediation. So I'm a mediator. I work with couples, businesses. Most of my business is with couples who are divorcing, so I help them through that process. Try to keep them out of the courtrooms, try to keep it more amicable. But what I keep coming back to is the most important thing in my life is my son. And that's the reason I'm here, because he's going to be in school for the next 10 years in the Falmouth school system. So, anticipating Judy's question, what I'd like to tell you is what my priorities are. My priorities, to me, it might sound trite, but everything starts and ends with children's education. That's what the school committee is about. We're not talking about something that's directly relevant to students' education. We're wasting our time. I think that the greatest impact on children's education are the teachers. And we need to support teachers in every single way we can. I think that we need to devote our energies toward professional development. We need to provide mentoring to our teachers. And by that, I'm not talking about that kind of yearly evaluation that they get. I'm talking about having, teachers, experienced teachers working with younger teachers. I'm talking about reaching out into the community. We've got a lot of retired teachers in this community who have done wonderful work. Bring them back into the schools, help them with new teachers and so forth. Providing the teachers feedback. And again, not just that yearly it's in my evaluation, it's going to be in my record, but really giving the teachers feedback as to what's going on so that they can improve what they're doing. I believe in giving them resources, and that is a range of things. It's pencils and papers. It's the Mullen Hall School Garden. It can be computers. It can be, all those kinds of different things. It can be curriculum. The other thing I think is really important is to really tap into teachers' passions and their strengths. So much of the time in education, in business, when we do an evaluation, it comes out with, well, you need to improve on this, this, and this. And what I found in managing teams was we did some work on really finding out what is somebody's passion and where their strength is and push them there. You got outstanding performance from those people. I think that we need to continue to encourage parents and community members to become involved in the schools and to share all the unique and diverse experiences and skills that we have. When I look at some of the great things that have gone on in the schools, the Mullen Hall School Garden, the Helping Hands program, the VIPS program, the Falmouth Education Association, all of those, the Parent Teachers Association, all of those are volunteers. It doesn't cost us anything. They're there. And I want to continue to reach out and make our schools accessible. That's one of the things that I've loved about the Mullen Hall School. It's a very accessible school to the parents. I think we need to really look at the best practices of excellent schools and start to integrate those best practices back into our schools. And I'll give you the other side of that is, and this is not to infer that there wasn't best practices or poor practices, but I'd like to know the answer as to why more than half of Bourne's rising freshmen chose not to go to Bourne High School. I'd like to know the answer to that question because I think it can teach us an awful lot. And I guess the last thing I would say is I think it's really important to exercise fiscal responsibility. Spending on our schools is an investment both in our children, but it's also an investment in the community into every one of ours property values. Any realtor will tell you that one of the very first questions that somebody who's looking for a house is, tell me about the schools. And so we need to do that. So we need to be really rigorous in deciding what our priorities are, and we need to maximize the value of our investments. Thank you.
Questions?
You answered my first question, obviously, how you would build upon this exceptional school system. So I'll ask the second one, and that is, at what level might you, do you believe that civics ought to become part of the curriculum?
I'm not even sure what civics is at this point, but I know that students are being exposed to our government in first grade. My son came home and he knew that the symbols of America, and he was just delighted when we took him to the Statue of Liberty and talked to him about that. So I think that, government, you start to, it's a building situation. Any kind of situation, just like math and reading, you build on it. So you start to expose them, but then it becomes more in detail as you get further on it. The other part of civics, I'm not sure if it really is civics as you're applying it. In this year in the second grade, Junior Treatment was in the second grade talking to students about the community and the way the community functions and the businesses in the community. When the second graders went over to Martha's Vineyard, one of the assignments that they had was to go down Main Street in Martha's Vineyard and to take a look at what are the different businesses, what kind of businesses there are, and to start comparing them to the businesses on Main Street here. I think that to me incorporates civics. So I would say it's all along the spectrum, if you will.
No, I agree. I think civics can be whatever you want it to be, but it's really people learning how to live together and learning to know that there are certain things they need to do for themselves and there are some things they can't do for themselves, and where does government really fit into all of this so that it isn't something that should be denied, but something that at least needs to be understood. Thank you very much. I appreciated your response.
I could start and possibly, well, I guess I'm not going to start, I'll be second. That it is, my question was about the MCAS, and I think that we had a good discussion about that. But I just really would like for you to say, what happens to that incredibly creative teacher who has to be held in line to make sure that the MCAS, everything about it is being taught? And what happens to that creativity? In your mind, how do you address that or think about that?
I think that that teacher that you're talking about is not going to be held down. That teacher is going to do what that teacher loves to do and taps into their passion and so forth. I think the MCAS, there's been a lot of discussion over the years about the MCAS and so forth, and nobody likes the testing and nobody likes to be taught to the test and so forth. The problem I have with the MCAS is I'm not sure that we do enough with the results. We test these students and we learn so much about them, but I'm not sure that we then kind of bring that back and say, that these fourth graders or this particular fourth grader really had trouble with that. And how does that then influence our math curriculum and so forth? Does that answer your question?
Well, your first answer was absolutely perfect, because a teacher does find a way to have both creativity and testing. And then as far as students in the classroom, I believe there's more discussion, but it won't be tonight.
I'll reiterate my question and phrase it in a little bit different terms. We all want excellence within our school system, and we all want the investment in our system. Board of Selectmen's job is, unlike the school committees, is a fiduciary position, meaning that we're the watchdog of the tax dollars in this community. We have a difference between wants and needs, and what we can afford and what we can't afford. How would you propose to be able to live within Proposition 2.5 as a member of the school committee?
I took a look at the expenditures of the school and saw that, actually the numbers that I saw, when you looked at the total expenditures from all funds and so forth, that the town of Falmouth is spending almost $15,000 a student, which is about 109% of the state average. So, and that's held fairly constant over the years. I think about 3 or 4 years it was about 106% of the state average. Now, I'm not quite sure what that number really means. You're comparing Falmouth to schools in Boston to schools out in the western part and so forth. What I would say to you is that, as I said before, I think that we need to be really rigorous in our priorities. One of the things that I did take a look at was there's a breakdown in terms of what Falmouth is spending on various areas, and it seemed like we were spending a lot on operations, like 140% of what the state average was. And again, I don't know whether you're looking at statistics, and they could be difference in reporting and so forth. So I think that there's an opportunity to look and to say, well, what are we spending our money on? Do we really want to spend our money in that way, or are we spending it that way because we spent it that way forever? And how does Falmouth compare in terms of what it's spending its money on to not only state averages, but how does it compare to Bourne? How does it compare to Mashpee? How does it compare to the other towns in the area? And is that really what we want our priorities on? Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
I think before I hand it over to you, I'll ask my question about what is it that the school committee, or you as a member of the school committee, can do to improve students' exposure to technology, and not from a perspective of just using it as in, here's an iPad and you can play games on it, but how do you program a game that can make you $1 million, that sort of thing?
So let me step back and say that I think that technology in the classroom, technology is going to change the classroom in ways that we can't even imagine here tonight over the next 10 to 15 years. It's going to dramatically change. I'm not sure that I think the answer to your question is that as that happens, we want to be providing opportunities for the student that wants to do what you're saying. But I think that at the same time, we can't lose sight of the student who has no interest in doing that whatsoever, and is an art student, or is a wonderful physical education person, a literature person, or something like that. I think that one thing that we need to make sure is that we don't get lost in the technology and lose sight of all the other wonderful things that make up the spectrum of learning that students should be exposed to.
Do you think, and I apologize because your statement made me think of a follow-up question here, that we teach reading, writing, arithmetic, math, science. Do you think programming should be a required course? Why
No.
or why not?
No.
Why not?
I don't. I think that technology literacy in the ability to use technology should be required, because we all use it, we're all going to have to use it. But I don't think that 90% of the people are going to need to do programming, and I wouldn't force that on them. I think it should be available to those students who want to be able to do that. But I use technology every day, and I've used it every day for the last, I don't know how many years, but I couldn't program a computer to save my life.
Thank you. Madam Chair?
Maybe just a quick recap drill. What would be your budget priorities in coming to the school committee and the upcoming budget process?
My budget priority is supporting teachers, pure and simple, in all the ways that I just talked about. We need to give teachers, teachers are the connection to the students. They are the ones who impact the students. So we need to do that. And as I said, professional development, I think, is really, really critical. One of the things that I noticed as I was doing the research that I talked about before is, and again, I don't know whether these numbers are correct or not, but Falmouth was spending at like the 50% level on the state average in terms of teacher professional development. I think we need to do a better job on that.
Okay, and the proper role of the school committee. What would be the proper role in furthering the education of Falmouth's children?
I think that the school committee, what the school committee needs to do is the school needs to be the visionaries, they need to be the leaders. They need to work closely with the administration in terms of implementing, listening to the administration as to what's going on in the classroom, setting high standards for the schools, being rigorous in terms of looking at the priorities, conveying the priorities that the population has for the schools.
Okay, and what are the most important things a Falmouth student can learn in preparing for a productive and satisfying life? As I said, the world peace question.
I think the most important thing that any of us can learn is to learn, is to just, the students, I've had 3 at least careers that I can point to in my life. I think students that are going to be graduating in the next 5, 10, 15 years, students that are graduating today, they're going to have 3 careers in the first 10 years. Students need to be able to adapt and to be able to learn and so forth. Hiring, companies that are hiring, a company that's hiring these days is not hiring with the idea that they're going to train somebody to do some sort of base level job. They expect students to be able to come in and do a job. But what they also expect is the students can learn how that particular company wants that job done and make that change. So I think that the most important thing students can learn is to learn. I think the other thing that is really, really important that students learn, and I saw this on a TED Talk, is grit. They called it grit. Just, picking yourself up, keep going, and so forth.
And I think because of the issue of time, Sam, do you want to wrap up with your last question?
Sure.
Okay.
What is your
assessment of the
Sam,
effect-
would you please use that technology?
What is your assessment of the effectiveness of the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks and standards that are now applied to most classroom instruction?
I mean, I think every survey that I've seen shows that Massachusetts graduates are at the top of the nation. So I think that is an indication that the framework is working well. And I think that what I would like to see us do here in Falmouth is continue to maintain very high standards, regardless of whether we're talking about the Common Core or anything. There's no reason why we as a town can't set really high standards and have our students meet it.
All right, so we have...
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
We have two candidates for one position. This is a term that expires at the next town election in May of 2014. I would accept the motion to put both names in a nomination.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to put both names in a nomination. All those in favor? Aye. And the school, thank you. We're all, I apologize, I should have clarified that we are all part of the quorum, and that this evening there are 13 of us here, 7 constitutes a majority, so the individual who gets 7 votes would be the new member of the school committee. I will go down through the list on the members of the, sorry?
Can I just make one comment on the appreciation on emails that I've received in support of both candidates, and that has been weighing in my decision also. And I'm glad to have that input from members who, are not going to be able to speak in favor of either one of them.
While we have this brief intermission, does any member of either committee or board wish to have any discussion about the candidates or merits, or do you want to just move directly into voting?
I'd just like to make a comment that I think both candidates are surely qualified, and I want to extend my thanks for them both coming forward. It is not easy to hold an elected position. You may be appointed tonight, but you'll be an elected official, and that is not always an easy thing to do within the community, and I thank you for your daringness. Thank you.
All right. So is there any further comments? Okay. So this will be a roll call vote, and I'll be recording each individual's vote. And we'll start with the school committee. Ms. Fenwick?
Alan Jacobs?
Ms. Davern?
Alan Jacobs.
Ms. Medeiros?
Alan Jacobs.
Ms. Augusta?
Mr. Jacobs?
Ms. Palmer?
Alan Jacobs.
Ms. Peterson?
Alan Jacobs.
Ms. Madison Earls?
Alan Jacobs.
Mr. Patterson?
Alan Jacobs.
Ms. Moffett?
Alan Jacobs.
Mr. Murphy?
I'm going to break the tie here just for the idea to thank Mrs. Allegro. Thank you. Allegro.
Ms. Flynn?
Alan Jacobs.
Mr. Jones?
Alan Jacobs?
And I'm going to join Mr. Murphy and vote for Ms. Allegro. But the school committee with 8 votes unanimously had already made it official. So congratulations to Mr. Jacobs. And thank you all for your participation and your presence here this evening.
Thank you.
If there's no objection from the board, we'll have a brief recess while we get ourselves reorganized here for the last of our agenda.
Oh, certainly. Thank you.
Oh, the numbers. We need. Gentlemen, the board is returning from recess after our joint meeting with the Falmouth School Committee. The next item on our agenda is a presentation regarding the intersections at Davisville and T-Ticket. Mr. Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Curry, Town Planner, for your record. Again, our purpose for being here tonight is to brief the Board of Selectmen together with the public as to where we are in the process with regards to the design build of the Davisville Square and T-Ticket lights. With me tonight is John Diaz of Green Pedersen Inc., part of our design team. He'll take you through the drawings. Again, tonight we're only talking about the roadway drawings. We will be letting another contract out, perhaps once these are fully finalized, for the landscaping and enhancements as part of another contract, but that will be sometime this fall. Just for your background, again, this was funded with Cape Cod Commission mitigation monies, and the construction will be with federal highway dollars. We started this process back in the spring of 2010. I said it would take 3 years. Here we are. And in the world of Mass Highway, Mass DOT, we're on the fast track. So with that, I will just turn it over to John to describe the drawings for the board and the public.
Again, John Diaz with GPI.
If you could speak into the microphone, you can take the microphone and hold it if you need to, just so the folks at home can actually hear you.
All right. As Brian mentioned, we started this process about 3 years ago. The first thing we did was we held several public meetings to get input on what the design should be. Then went back to the public with those designs, and then subsequently went through the design process with Mass DOT, and along the way had the public hearing, the formal Mass DOT public hearing. This is the intersection of Jones Road at T-Ticket. Basically, at this intersection, as you know, it's very congested. It's very difficult getting out of Worcester Court and Jones Road. What we ended up doing was lengthening the left turn lanes along Route 28, as well as providing dedicated left turn lanes along both Worcester Court and Jones Road. It's a full upgrade of the traffic signal. It will be all new traffic signal equipment out there, all detection in the pavement to pick up vehicles in every lane. We also, as part of the project, there's full sidewalks along both sides of Route 28, along both sides of Worcester Court, and along both sides of Jones Road within the limits of the project. With that, there's full pedestrian detection and full crosswalks, all 4 approaches to the intersection. So everything's basically new and upgraded in that intersection. We are doing very minor landscaping at the intersection. If you notice, this is the Stop and Shop parking lot on this side. We're actually tightening up the corner, I guess would be the northwest corner, and that gives us a little opportunity to just do a little landscaping in that corner. Other than that, we're pretty limited to the right-of-way that we're doing, that we can work within. At the Davisville intersection, kind of flipped it just so it would fit on the board. This is Route 28 going this way. The reason we flipped it is, as you can see, we're taking the project down past the elementary school. That was an add-on to the project that the DOT was willing to pick up, and what that allows us to do is provide full sidewalks down to the school. We're repaving the entire road past the school and redoing the school zone in front of the school. In terms of the intersection itself, again, Route 28 is going vertical here. Left turn lanes on Route 28, both directions. On the Old Meeting House and Davisville Road, we don't have the left turn lanes because it's a narrow right-of-way there. But again, full sidewalks through the intersection, all sides of the road, again, going down to the school. All new traffic signal equipment, all new pedestrian equipment, all new crosswalks. Here we are doing a little more landscaping. I know there was a lot of
desire for enhanced landscaping at the intersection. Going through the process, as we got going on the process with the town, we want to do some, but the majority of the area we had to work within is outside the right-of-way. And so rather than hold up this project, we figured it was easier for the town to work independently with the owners and really develop a landscape plan for the entire area. We are doing some, as I mentioned, going down to the school. I guess in this case it would be the southeast corner where the traffic control box will be. There will be greens and shrubs screening the box from the roadway. We know that was a concern. And then there will be some on the the southwest corner and the northeast corner. As far as the process where we are, we will be wrapping up the design and the final submission to the DOT in August. It will be advertised in September. By the time they go through bids and then going into the winter season, you probably won't see construction start out there until the spring of next year. Given that they don't work through the summer, it will be a spring, fall, probably a spring, and then another fall. So it'll probably be a 2-year construction season. The job, once it gets going before it starts construction, once the DOT hires a contractor, there will be a pre-construction hearing that the town can attend. If there's any concerns as far as impacts construction, and the contractor will lay out their schedule for the proposed work. So that's basically where we are.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question. If you can go back to the Jones Road. If you look at the corner of Route 28, making a right turn onto Jones Road,
Yes.
that corner now is it's kind of like a curve, if you know what I mean. In other words, people who approach that light can just kind of zip around the corner because it's wider, I think, than the other side. How are you going to modify that in some way?
Yeah, that's the corner I was talking about. That's the one place where we are able to do some landscaping because we're tightening up that corner.
So when you say tighten up,
we're lessening the pavement.
lessening the curve? Okay.
Yes.
More of a 90 degree.
Pardon?
Lessening the curve.
Okay, lessening the curve, thank you. Because, it's, you know what it's like. Anybody that stands there for any period of time knows what it's like too. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
No.
Any questions from the audience?
Am I correct that there's bicycle actuation at all?
Yes.
The question was bicycle actuation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And please, if you could come to the podium just when you ask the question so the folks at home can hear.
Jed Goldstone, Precinct 4. I live right around the corner. I know that there will be traffic mitigation plans. Will those be presented in such a way that we'll be able to comment on them? Because we also walk kids to school through that intersection as well.
You're talking about construction staging?
The construction staging, yeah.
We do.
Into the microphone, please. I apologize. The folks at home can't hear you.
We do basically a generic construction plan that goes in as part of the submission that's reviewed by the DOT. The contractor then, once a contractor is on board, they prepare their own construction staging plan, which is presented at the pre-construction meeting, and that's it. The town can attend that if there's any issues. I would advise you to advise the town. They do require that the road be open at all times. It may be down to a 1 lane in each direction type of thing during phases of construction, but they do make an attempt, obviously, to keep access through the corridor. They do have to provide, if they're working on the sidewalk, they have to provide temporary sidewalks, temporary accessibility. If you have to cross the road, they have to build temporary wheelchair ramps so there's accessibility. So they have to keep accessibility through the construction zone throughout the entire time.
An additional concern is the fact that there's a side street that people tend to cut through, and it doesn't have any stop signs, and we've been working with the police and trying to get some more traffic enforcement, but obviously if it's down to 1 lane, there's going to be a lot more traffic through there. Are there plans to address neighboring streets in terms of traffic mitigation plans?
Not specifically. Again, it's an ongoing construction project. There may be periods when there are cars that are finding alternative routes. There may be periods when driveways are blocked for a short period. That's just the nature of construction. It's a staggered construction. They're not allowed to work during the summer from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So they basically have a 3-month window in the spring and fall that they can work. If there are specific concerns, again, I would suggest bring those up, and they can be addressed prior to construction. There is also a resident engineer from the DOT on the job at all times. The job is run through construction by Mass DOT in District 5. If there's anything that's coming up during construction, either excessive delays or excessive traffic issues, something's not what you feel is up to code, call the district. They will work with you through their resident engineer to address whatever the issues are.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Last questions from the board?
Board followed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the next item on our agenda is another presentation regarding Steamship Authority Palmer Avenue lot improvements for Phase 2. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and friends on the board. The purpose of our being here tonight, I'm Bob Marshall, the Falmouth Authority member on the Steamship Authority. With me tonight is Wayne Lamson, who's the brains behind this outfit. I'm going to start kind of aside from the purpose of our being here and just give you some update on our current figures, traffic, and both pedestrian and automobile and truck. And then just take you for a minute or two through the Woods Hole reconstruction project that we are now in the feasibility study planning section of. And then Wayne will get to answer any questions that you have in presenting the Phase 2 Palmer Avenue parking lot situation prior to our moving on to Thomas Landers in another year or so. Firstly, even given all the traffic that we all have experienced over the past month or month and a half, the Steamship Authority's figures maintain a pattern that we have seen over the past several years, and that is pretty flat. We're looking at increases in passengers in the under 1% area, 0.7%. We're looking at, excuse me, increases in automobile traffic of about 1.5%. That would represent over the 5 weeks or so that we're into summer, maybe 20 cars a day through Woods Hole. I'm not addressing the Nantucket Hyannis figures at all. They're not terribly relevant as to what we're talking about here. The truck traffic, about the same, although the percentages are a little higher because the base is a lot smaller. We're seeing maybe 500 or 600 trucks over the period over previous year. Even that's 30 or 40 vehicles a day over 12 hours, so do the math. It's really not a significant traffic load, and this is what we continue to see. I think 2007 was a peak year at considerably greater numbers than what we're dealing with here, so we've got a pretty good handle on where we're going. From there, excuse me, I'd like to get into what we're starting in Woods Hole, which will be a project of some significant magnitude. We began in April with a feasibility study which was planned for about a 9-month period. It may well go into 12 months given the complexity and magnitude of the project. It's being done by Bertaux and iWorks Architects. They were chosen by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Architectural Board That was not selection made by the Steamship Authority on a vote of 9-1, so the board, and we wholeheartedly agree with their selection. These guys seem to be doing a terrific job. But if I may, just to take you through a little bit of this project, which looks like it will be somewhere close to north or south of $40 million. It's not going to be insignificant by any means. 3 slips will be reconfigured. There is exotic technology now based on currents and winds and tides that will allow us to really master plan the 3 slips that will be reconfigured in Woods Hole Passage and simulated. I mean, they're actually at a point in technology where they can put this stuff into a simulator and take you through the Woods Hole Passage. So that'll be the most interesting and probably the most significant in terms of its relative cost. But after that, we're talking about ticket office, passenger waiting, restrooms, concessions, employee facilities, agents, ticket sellers, dock workers, administrative offices, which may or may not continue to be in Woods Hole. We now have an opportunity at Thomas Landers that we're looking at. And wherever it makes most sense, we will be considering that option clearly. Communications center, customer check-in. We've got a mess down there with buses, people unloading buses on the wrong side, crossing in front of the buses, cars coming off the ferry, crossing in front of the people fronting, fronting the cars. So all that has got to get cleaned up. A waiting shelter, a bus facility, parking. I mean, there is the Woods Hole parking area, which fortunately for the Woods Hole environment is, for the most part, permit parking. So there's not a lot of activity in and out of that lot. Taxis are an issue, trash storage, pickup, traffic flow, on and on and on. I think I'm reasonably safe in making the observation that the Steamship Authority is very much committed to working with the neighbors and working with the community. I am part of Falmouth, Wayne is part of Falmouth. 80% of our traffic system-wide is Woods Hole traffic. The Steamship Authority is committed to make things better. Nothing will come out of this process as being detrimental to what we see as being necessary to maintain our position within the community. The architects have already met with the Woods Hole Village Association, the Woods Hole Building, retail and business people. They met with Brian Curry, Peter will be involved. Everybody that need be involved will be involved. Again, we've still probably got of a 9-month program that's been in place for 9 months, still 9 months to go. So that's my piece of tonight's agenda, and we'll continue to brief you directly or indirectly through smaller groups that are involved in the process. Then we go on to...
Can I interrupt just on
Sure.
Woods Hole? Just if there's any way that there can be more parking available to the businesses and the residents of Woods Hole, available from the Steamship Authority, would certainly alleviate a lot of the problems that are happening in Woods Hole right now. And if you're saying there's permanent parking going on right now, if that permanent parking could be at Palmer Ave, at Thomas Landers, instead of Woods Hole, when Woods Hole is desperately in need of places for the businesses and visitors to be able to park.
Well, certainly it's an issue that can be explored.
Right.
What kind of success I have there remains to be seen, because a very significant part of that decision is not being made by us in Woods Hole or Falmouth. It's being made by our partners with a significantly greater vote on the vineyard, and that parking services the vineyard. So although we are a very collegial board and we seem to be doing things in unison, and it's a kind of you scratch my back, I scratch yours situation, that gets to be a little tender because all those permit parkers are vineyard people. So we will certainly attempt to strike a balance here, and who knows what will come out of that. Doug, I mean, no promises, but certainly we'll enter into the discussion.
Any other questions for? Thank you, Bob.
If Wayne would take us through the parking lot phase 2.
Good evening, I'm Wayne Lamson, General Manager of the Steamship Authority. We have one remaining issue to resolve with the Phase 2 project of the parking lot improvements, and that is whether to include a bike path connector across from the intersection of Catherine Lee Bates Road and Palmer Avenue. The proposed connector would be constructed on both state and Steamship Authority property, next to the driveway currently used by Peter Pan buses and the RTA buses for their main access to the bus station. We have had positive discussions with representatives from Mass DOT on possible use of additional state property for Steamship Authority parking in exchange for building a bike path connector for the town. The additional state property includes a 40-foot wide parcel that abuts the existing Palmer Avenue parking lot, as well as the bike path on the other side. We are proposing to leave a 20-foot buffer along the bike path. We've also committed in our meetings with the town staff to supplement the existing vegetation in the remaining buffer area with additional plantings in consultation with the town's Department of Public Works. We are looking to complete final bid specs and plans for Phase 2 by the middle of next month. We need to know whether an estimated 90 additional parking spaces, the additional landscaping, and the bike path connector will be included in the final plans or not. If the connector is included, we will need to enter into a lease agreement with the town at some point for the use and the maintenance of that connector. We look at this as a win-win for both of us, and we hope that you will support this initiative being presented tonight for your approval.
Questions from the board?
It's not so much a question, and maybe Mr. Suso would be better suited to answer, to respond to this. This was a carryover item from my chairmanship, so I'm relatively well aware of what's going on here, and I appreciate the Steamship Authority working because there was some concerns specifically about the buffer, and that folks enjoying the bike path would really merely be riding along a parking lot. The Steamship Authority has graciously agreed to increase the vegetation to be able to make sure that that parking lot would be screened in a better form and fashion. I think the area that this board probably needs to discuss is the bike path connector. It's something that we've always wanted. However, the Steamship Authority, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, Julian or Mr. Marshall, would like to be indemnified for those folks using the bike path connector. So this is something I think the board will ultimately need to bring to town meeting, because we'll either need legal counsel or something of that nature to be able to provide us an easement, a license, or something like that, that would provide that indemnification from the Steamship Authority on that bike path connector. In other words, this looks like a great plan, but I know that there's more nuts and bolts to this from the board as well as from town meeting, and I hope that we can put it on and as an agenda item to vote to support it pending a vote from town meeting, because I don't think this board has the authority to be able to enter into an agreement itself. I think town meeting would have to enter into that agreement. And I know legal counsel from both the Steamship Authority and our legal counsel need to work out the logistics of that. So this is a presentation tonight. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Julian, you might want to hone in, but I wanted to bring the board up to speed of where we got to tonight and how we've gotten here. And again, this was just a carryover item that we've been working on. Phase 1 came before the board originally some months back, and this was all part of Phase 2. So,
Just for clarification, Is that the section on the map with the broken lines on the very far left that we're talking about?
Over here?
Yeah, there. Is that,
Yes.
that's the area?
This is Steamship Authority property here on the lower end, and then we get into Commonwealth of Mass property. And the Commonwealth would lease this property to the Steamship Authority. We would turn around and lease it to the town, along with the right-of-way over the authority's
Over the
property.
authority. Okay.
So it involves both the Steamship Authority and state property. But the state didn't want to have to deal with both the town and the Steamship Authority, and suggested that they would lease this to us, and then we would work it out with the town.
So then the whole piece
So
would
the-
be
the
worked
whole
out between
piece.
the town and you? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman and Selectman Murphy, just a comment that, yes, certainly, my general understanding is that there are one or more legal steps that would need to be taken in this transaction, and unfortunately, Steamship Authority Council and Town Council did not have an initial discussion on this until last Friday. The map that is on the wall and for which the board has copies, we received for the first time on Thursday of last week. So I want the board to be aware that as far as the details in front of you, they're of a recent vintage. The fact that legal discussions have just begun prevents me from being certain as to what the exactly what the final product is going to look like. But as Selectman Murphy indicated, I do anticipate that there will be some need for legal approval. It may ultimately require town meeting approval, depending upon what the final product is and what Town Council Duffy works out with Steamship Authority Council as well. But we recognize that it is an important element in allowing and facilitating this strategic connector, and we certainly recommend it and applaud that possibility as an enhancement to the town's bikeway system in general. And if I might make one other comment, Mr. Chairman, it would be, again, as Selectman Murphy had mentioned, because this had some initial contact had begun during his tenure as chair of the board. The planted buffer shown in green, as has been indicated by General Manager Lamson, is a 40-foot strip, as I understand it, that would be narrowed down to 20 feet, but maintained as a 20-foot planted buffer with some enhanced plantings there to be worked out with the town, which we greatly applaud and appreciate, as you've noted, to maintain the aesthetics of the bikeway in that area and maintain the quality of that environment. And I just would ask that, you know, the board's minutes note that this is as portrayed in the map we did receive from the Steamship Authority representatives, and that we very much appreciate their diligence in coming forward with that and presenting it in that form.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, for historical information, if I may, the Steamship Authority really has no horse in this race. Falmouth Bikeways came to the Steamship Authority asking if we could make this connector happen, given our project on Palmer Avenue, parking project, Phase 1 and Phase 2. The Steamship Authority and Authority members have agreed that if we can work something out within the environment that the Steamship Authority controls to allow for bike access basically from that corner cycle across, instead of having to run across the street and up Depot and in through that parking lot and so forth, that the Steamship Authority, we as a Steamship Authority, would try to accommodate we as a town and put in this bike connector. So to the Steamship Authority's credit and to the board members, my colleagues on the board's credit, we have done everything that we can to accommodate this request of the Bikeways Committee. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't change the steamship authority operation one little bit. Having said that, we would like very much to have it happen, because it's the right thing to do, and to accommodate bike people in Falmouth, which seems to be growing and growing and growing. Why not? This opportunity doesn't present itself very often. So here we are. We, in fact, are going to pick up some parking spaces here. There's no question about that either. But the economic value of those parking spaces is a rounding error. The Steamship Authority is sold out 4 or 5 days a year. And only when all the lots are sold out do we pick up the number of parking spaces that are here as a Steamship Authority. If those parking spaces don't exist and we're not sold out, what happens is those 50 or 90 or however many spaces wind up on Thomas Landers a year from now, or on Gifford Street now. So I hope that brings a little perspective to where we are. We are fighting on behalf of the bikeways people to make this thing happen.
We applaud that. I just have a question. It's sort of related, but not related to this, which I think we've always wanted to see this happen. So the fact that you're working with the Bikeways Committee in the town, this is a really good thing. So we need to be on top of it. But if someone were riding their bike from North Falmouth and coming down the bike path to the steamship and wanted to turn in, get on a bus to go to Woods Hole, to go to the Vineyard, where would they enter this steamship lot to do that? If they were coming down the bike path, say from the north.
It'd be right there at Skating Lane.
They can enter at Skating Lane?
Yeah, there are gates open because there are shuttle buses that go back and forth over the bike path to the back
Right here.
lot.
Okay, thank you.
So just to recap, and I guess the question is, don't mean to frame this, Mr. Chairman, but the Steamship Authority wants to bid this project. So I think ultimately they're going to be looking for a vote from this board, pending an approval of town council and if in fact we needed a vote from town meeting. But I think that they're anxious to be able to put this on the street because they have a timeline to get this finished by next year's summer season. So I'll leave it, that's the last thing I'll say on it. It's back in your court how you want to handle it now.
Well, and I would refer the board to both our agenda and the email that I sent you all last week from Mr. Duffy regarding the arrangement of the agenda. You'll note, and for the public's edification, in meetings past, we've often put on the agenda terms such as approve or vote, and the opinion that I got from town council, and it was shared with this board, was that any item on the agenda is up for discussion and any further action that the board seems fit. So we could, in fact, take a vote to make a preliminary approval in this case, pending legal counsel and town meetings approvals, of course, for such indemnification. That is certainly within our ability under the open meeting law based on town council's interpretation of it. So if we wanted to proceed with a vote this evening, we could.
That would be my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, then. I would make that motion that we would approve the preliminary plan of both the landscaping and potential landscaping plan as well as the bike path connector, subject to concurrence from town council and/or town meeting if in fact necessary. And of course, anything from town council would then have to come back to the Board of Selectmen for a vote as well. So that would be my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Looks like Mr. Marshall is satisfied with that.
I think that, I would agree with that motion. I think that covers us sufficiently.
Okay.
Your support will clearly go a long way to making this happen.
Comments from the public?
Kevin Lynch, Bikeways Committee, Precinct 3. I've been on the Bikeways Committee quite a while, and I want to thank the Steamship Authority. What if you don't remember is this whole bike path from Locust Street to Skating Lane the design was done by the Steamship Authority. So when we built that whole section there, the town paid virtually nothing because it was 100% paid for by the state. And I mentioned that before because we connect to Martha's Vineyard.
That's right.
But the other thing is at 620 Palmer Avenue, you know, where we put that connector to hopefully get over to Goodwill Park. And through that and some others, there's a state law that limits liability if you provide a recreation that you don't need liability insurance because the state allows that. So I want to just bring that to your attention. We've run into that before. I'm not a lawyer, of course, but I just wanted to tell you, I don't think that's as big a problem as you think it is, Mr. Murphy.
I don't think it is either, but I think we need, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's all right.
I think we just need to get town council's approval on any language that we
And the other thing is there's none of our property involved.
Just one last thing, but the Steamship Authority definitely wants us to indemnify them in our discussions, if I'm not mistaken, and hold themselves harmless.
That would be correct.
Right.
And in the preliminary discussions between our general counsel and town council, the issue did come up about recreational liability. And I think it's very minimum, the exposure that the town would have in any event.
Any further questions from the public?
I'm Ed Gross. I'm current Bikeways chairman, and this is a carryover item from Kevin Lynch's tenure as chairman for 20 years. The value of this connector is obvious to any of us who've been around for a while, but I thought that if anyone on the board doesn't understand why it's so important, I would just put in a couple of words. The owner of Corner Cycle will tell you that it's not uncommon for him to have people rent bikes and then come back, and he's only a few yards from the bikeway. But to have people rent bikes from Corner Cycle and then come back a half an hour or an hour later and say, I couldn't find the bikeway. Because there's no obvious direction to it. You have to get on Palmer Avenue, where it becomes West Main, North Main, and then take a right turn on Depot. If you're coming from the bikeway, you have to take a left turn onto a state highway, that is, down Depot Avenue, left turn on 28, and then a right turn at Queens Byway at Palmer Avenue again. And this is not obvious to most people. I don't think signing it would help either. Taking a left turn with a bike with kids, somebody was telling me about that, with a bike with kids and stuff, it feels hazardous to people who come to ride on the bikeway and have a fun recreational experience. The other thing is that this connection across Catherine Lee Bates serves to bring people into the Main Street environment where they can access lunch, maybe some souvenirs, and other kinds of business, as well as supports the two schools, the Lawrence School and Mullen Hall School, and the public library, all of which I think we have good reason to be proud of. And we now have Catherine Lee Bates Road with sharrows on it, so people know that bicycles use it, and they'll use it more. The Steamship Authority has been wonderful in working with us. We exercised the part of our formative charter where town meeting told us that we could engage in discussions and create agreements with other agencies, as long as we didn't spend too much money doing it. And we haven't spent anything on this except a lot of time. So we're very grateful that things have carried forward as they have. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thanks to Peter and Brian for their help. They were most helpful through the process.
Very good. Any last comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, might I ask if this sketch would be part of the board's motion then
consistent with what has been presented to you this evening, would that, if that would be agreeable.
I'll amend my motion to have that included.
Did you have a question? Okay. All right, so we prepared then to vote? We have a motion and a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you all.
All right, the next item on our agenda is a discussion of the right of first refusal and authorizing the town manager to execute a certificate of compliance for 350 Old Barnstable Road. This is an affordable housing unit. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the board may have received a late email from Diane Davidson that had come through Heather Harper. The offer to purchase on this property has been withdrawn. We were notified, frankly, yesterday. And Heather Harper, who has been tracking and working on this diligently, has recommended to the board that you consider voting to decline the right of first refusal and also authorize a certificate of compliance for resale at 95% of appraised value that would provide the conditions that this could go forward if those conditions are met, but would not require additional action by the board beyond that. So that is the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
I would make that motion if we're...
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda, LIP application of Colchester Developers, 125 Highland Avenue, North Falmouth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Laura Moynihan. I'm an attorney. I represent the applicant for this LIP application. Mr. Borselli is here with me, whose firm is responsible for the surveying and engineering work for this property. He'll give you a brief overview of the site plan. I did file a draft application and then a final application with your office. So I'll give you just an overview and obviously be happy to answer any questions you may have about the project. This property is located in the New Silver area of North Falmouth at 123 Highland Avenue. It actually encompasses two access points, Highland Avenue and then Glen Avenue to the north. It's a fairly large parcel of land for the New Silver neighborhood. It's about 33,000 square feet. And there is a single-family home here that does exist, so that would be incorporated into the project. And a new building would be built here, which is a duplex building, and that would contain one affordable unit and one market rate unit. And I'm not sure what you have for material, but I did put some packets together that will assist.
Thank you.
This is a copy of the site plan, a copy of the elevation and floor plans for the new structure, a photograph of the existing dwelling, just to give you an idea of what that looks like, as well as a photograph of the project that this particular builder, Colchester Developers, which is Good Builders, did at 56 Hunt Street, which was a LIP project that this board endorsed and was issued a comprehensive permit and went through and approved by DHCD and is actually built and up and operating with an affordable tenant as well as a market rate unit. So I've given you that photograph of Hunt Street just so you can get an idea of what this building will look like because it's the same design. for this new building. The affordable unit will be about 1,130 square feet of living area. The duplex is in a flood zone, so it will be up higher, just like you see in the photograph for the Hunt Street building. It will be a one-bedroom unit, one full bath, one half bath, kitchen, living, dining area, and an outdoor deck. It will be on 2 floors of habitable space, and it will also have a garage in the lower level for a garage and storage area. The market rate unit in the duplex will be 1,490 square feet, slightly larger. The market unit would be 2 bedrooms. The market unit in the existing dwelling would remain as a market rental, and that has 3 bedrooms. The floor area of the existing dwelling is about 1,700 square feet, so it's a little bit larger. That has 2 full baths as well as living and kitchen areas. So these are all rentals. They would remain as rentals in perpetuity. The affordable unit would rent for $1,100 a month is proposed, which includes the utilities. That's the rental for the affordable unit on Hunt Street. That was a successful program. The Falmouth Housing Authority was the lottery agent and is the monitoring agent. There's a single woman living there. It's very happy. It's a lovely location and a beautifully constructed unit there. So 2 parking spaces for each unit, one for the new building, one in the garage, one in the driveway. Mr. Borsello will go through the details of the site plan. I just want to point out, this is on the municipal sewer, and it has been reviewed by the Affordable Housing Committee, who gave it a positive endorsement and support the project. It was also reviewed by the town's LIP committee, which includes a member from your board, and it was recommended by the LIP committee. The LIP committee did asked us to look at the utility connections, water and sewer, and improvements to Glen Avenue at the access point. I did secure a letter from the wastewater superintendent confirming that he has no objections to the additional bedroom capacity for the new Silver sewer treatment plant. This project would have 6 bedrooms. So he says that he has no objection to that. This is in the LIP application, that it has the capacity for that. He would have no objection to a waiver of that bylaw provision, which the Board of Appeals, we would ask the Board of Appeals to grant the waiver of the new Silver Beach bylaw, which only allows 3 bedrooms per parcel. So this would be 6 bedrooms. And we felt that with the support of the wastewater superintendent and the fact that there's additional capacity there, that we're hopeful that the zoning board would grant that waiver. The only zoning waiver required is that there is more than 1 dwelling on the lot. All other zoning criteria would be met: building height, setbacks, lot coverage, etc. So those are the nuts and bolts of the project. Mr. Berselli, if he may, will just take a couple of minutes to give you some details of the site and the utilities.
Thank you, Laura. Members of the board, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. I'd just like to take you briefly through the site plan. The lot contains just over 37,000 square feet, which is a rather large lot for this part of Falmouth. The average lot sizes are about 10,000 square feet. It's bounded on the north by Glen Avenue, which is undeveloped. It's basically a footpath, except at the very beginning, which is a roadway that services 2 or 3 houses right at the intersection of Arlington and Glen Avenue. On the west side is a paper road known as Oak Street, again undeveloped. And on the south is Highland Avenue, which is developed up to this point, and then it's undeveloped further to the west. The existing single-family dwelling and driveway are here. We're proposing the structure here with driveway access that'll take off from the existing access that serves the other homes on Glen Avenue. It'll be a 10-foot wide gravel driveway that leads to the building with parking below and some parking spaces in this location. There are wetland resources nearby. We have applied to the Conservation Commission. In fact, we have a public hearing on Wednesday night to present the plans to that commission. The utilities, wastewater, and water service will come from Highland Avenue. The current situation with water service to the lot is substandard by the town water department standards. It's an existing service that comes to this dwelling actually from Glen Avenue through the parcel across where we're proposing the duplex. It is substandard to serve the uses that are proposed on the site. So part of the application and part of the project is to improve water access by construction of a new water main down Highland Avenue, which will consist of an 8-inch diameter water main and a hydrant at the end and a hydrant at the beginning. This has all been designed to town water department standards. It's been reviewed through the offices of the DPW through Mr. Jack's office, and it was all approved by that department for construction. So not only will this property enjoy the benefit of a new water main, any of the other properties along Highland Avenue will also now have the benefit of a larger, more efficient water main on that road. This is a blow up. This is a larger scale, which is fairly obvious, and Highland Ave is here, so the service to this duplex will come off of the new water main, and the existing sewer line is in Highland Avenue, and the duplex will be connected to it as well. The current overall lot coverage by structures, which is just for the single family dwelling, is 3.4%, and under zoning you'd be allowed up to 20%. The addition of the duplex raises the overall lot coverage from 3.4 to only 8.5, still far below maximum allowed lot coverage by structures. So the lot itself is certainly adequate in terms of its size. Access is made easily over Glen Avenue, and the project will result in both properties being sufficiently separated and have sufficient privacy that they can work well on this lot, since it is of the size that it is. With regard to the wetland resources, we've cited the proposed work and the limit of work shown on the plan so that it meets proper setback requirements under the Wetlands Protection Act. And we've taken into account steps to protect the wetland resources during construction. I think that pretty much sums it up, and I'm happy to answer questions.
I also have, just for your information, a copy of the GIS map, if anybody would like to see that, just to get an idea of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
That GIS map shows the larger neighborhood and the extent of the development there. So this is a local initiative program project. With that, the applicant is essentially asking for the town's endorsement of the project to submit the application to DHCD. The application and all the financial information and the budgets would be reviewed by DHCD as part of their approval or site approval or project eligibility. They have a fairly stringent approval process, I think is fair to say, under the LIP program, They look at these applications very carefully. They'll come down and they'll review the site. They'll analyze the budget changes. They might require things to be modified on that. But this project, quite frankly, the budget is pretty straightforward. You know, it's about a $450,000-$500,000 construction project. So we're anticipating that DHCD, or hoping that this board and DHCD will both allow for this project to move forward. With your endorsement, if you're inclined to do that, and DHCD's issuance of the project eligibility or site approval, the next step would be to apply to the Falmouth Zoning Board of Appeals for a comprehensive permit. The Zoning Board of Appeals would have the last say in the matter in terms of whether or not the project should be approved under the state statute. So there will be a pretty extensive review of it, and we hope to have your support. Thank you.
Ms. Moffett?
We can start with Kevin, if you'd like. No?
Whatever.
Well, I saw your hand first. So.
Go ahead.
Okay. Maybe my questions are rather trite, but I'm thinking about the people who, as all of this is passed and accepted, that are going to live there. And the first thing I guess I thought about was when you say the word sewer and you say New Silver Beach, I go to Betterman's. And would the people that would be living there pay a betterment because they're going to be connected to the sewer?
No, because it's a rental project. There has been one betterment assessed to the owner of the property already for the single-family dwelling. The betterment process would be one that would be reviewed by the wastewater and superintendent upon application for connection to the second building. And because it's a rental project, it would be up to the owner to pay that really as part of the construction budget. We would expect as part of that process that there may be a second betterment assessed on the property.
And then the home that is not the rental? What is there?
All of the homes would be, all of the units would be rental.
All the units are rentals.
Yeah.
What's the impact to the residents that are there on Glen? I mean, I'm familiar with both of those streets and the number of houses that are there. What's the impact to them? I'm thinking about that road that is starting at the top and, you know, you're working in there. But what is, they'll have access continuously to their homes? They'll be disrupted?
Well, during the construction process or
during,
after?
During construction.
Okay, do you want to answer that? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There'll be continuous access to those homes because there currently is driveway access to them, and we're proposing to extend the driveway access further and beyond that, so that if there were construction vehicles, trucks and workmen, they would make way to the site over the newly constructed driveway, and they would, all the staging and construction would take place here, not interrupt access.
Okay.
Or there may also be some staging over here, but it'll never be that access to those properties is impeded.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Spoon?
I think you've actually answered the questions I had about the lot configuration, and it's one lot, and there's one owner of the lot, and both parcels are going to, both dwellings are going to be rented.
Correct.
And what is the, next is the town of Falmouth lot. Is that just a lot the town happens to own, or does that have anything to do with the Silver Beach sewer system?
I believe it's just a parcel that the town owns.
It's just a parcel owned by the town?
Yeah, the GIS map
Yeah.
that I gave you, but I don't believe there's any sewer treatment facilities there. It's open space. And that was one of the things that we thought was attractive about this parcel, not only because of its size, but because of the adjacent public land. The parcel is actually a number of very small lots laid out in the late 1800s. I think there are 6 or 7 of them, but the town has treated it as one large parcel for tax purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Just for the board's information, I and former Selectman Braga sat in on the LIP committee when we reviewed this project, but I do have a couple of questions I want to ask. Number one question, and this was brought up since our meeting, was Heather Harper asked about the potential of flood insurance. And I just want to make sure that we have on the record that the tenants won't be paying that would be paid for by the owner of the properties, if in fact that won't, in other words, it won't change the rental fee of the affordable unit.
That's correct.
Okay.
And DHCD, to my knowledge, doesn't have any allowance for that. It's typically just like homeowners insurance. It would be incorporated into the owner's overhead.
Okay. The next question I might ask is the monitoring agent. It appears that the state is now requiring the town to be involved in some form of action of monitoring these affordable rental units. Ms. Harper has suggested the potential of the owner paying the fee for the monitoring agent. Are you folks willing to do that?
Well,
if in fact that's necessary?
The owner has to pay the fee to the Falmouth Housing Authority anyway. When Heather and I discussed that, what she had indicated to me was that it was somewhat up in the air what DHCD may or may not be requiring in the future from the municipalities for monitoring, that this project might be one that comes in before that type of thing is finalized. And so I suggested to her that if something changed by the time this project came to fruition at DHCD and DHCD required the town to be the monitoring agent, then obviously the applicant here would work with the town. And I mean, I don't know what the fee is, but I would assume it would be a reasonable fee and similar to what the housing authority would charge. So it really is not an issue for the property owner or the applicant as to who does the monitoring.
Okay, so that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Just a couple of points there. I'm very familiar with the area. I grew up in New Silver Beach. Glen Avenue actually technically goes all the way through, but it's considered the snake path after this particular property, or having been called the snake path. There is an underground pumping station a little bit further on that road, but it's an underground facility. I will say that I'm familiar with this other project in New Silver Beach. It is the exact way that we want affordable units to be positioned throughout this community, to be within neighborhoods. If you were to drive by this other unit, which has probably one of the best views that any one of the members of the Board of Selectmen would ever want for their own home, an affordable unit that has ocean views, it provides a great opportunity for folks to be in neighborhoods and folks not knowing that they are in fact affordable units if you didn't hear this particular presentation. So I know that there were some questions when the LIP committee reviewed this. Those questions were answered, and I think it's a good project. Okay.
Just one quick thing that I would say is that it also increases the number of affordable housing in another section of the town.
Exactly.
And I think that when you start to do the balance of those numbers and you see that percentage, I was pleased to see that's another positive.
Very true.
Further questions from the board? Anyone from the audience wish to weigh in on this?
Good evening. My name is Ann Clark, and I'm an abutter here. We have a few others, and I think just because of the time, we lost a few, too. But I live on Highland Ave. I'm at 115 Highland Ave. And I'm not really prepared as I would like to be. The only reason I'm here is that I stopped by Town Hall today to make sure that we were still going to have our meeting on Wednesday night with Conservation. I know that there are a great, large number of people in the community that have a lot of concerns about this, and they're planning to go to the meeting on Wednesday night. information has been going out. Information, even signs have been taken down. There seems to be a lot of, there's a lot of concern from the community, and I don't even know if part of the community doesn't even want everybody to know that this is going in, because I know some signs have been put up on either side of the trail on 2 different occasions, and they've been removed on 2 different occasions. So there is a lot going on in this community and a lot of concern. I think my first issue, I know that you referred to it as a footpath. And the snake path, I know, as you've mentioned, I always called it the snake trail. I know I've been in the area for over 40 years, and everybody goes through it. And it is the main thoroughfare, the main walking trail from one end of this community down to the harbor or the beach and the sailing program. In fact, you'll probably find when the sailing classes start and end, you will find 15, 20 kids going through there on bicycles. You will find mothers with their baby carriages. You will find older people. You will find younger people. It is a highly used path. It's a regular method of getting to the beach, getting to the sailing program, getting to the tea room, getting anywhere on the other side of this community. Now, first of all, my safety concern is if you have a duplex, and we'll all assume that each unit may have 2 cars each. So you have 4 additional cars coming in. And, well, I know I need to stay near this, but on Glen Ave comes and it's a dead end, and then the snake trail starts. And then I guess they're going to extend the road into the snake trail. It's the only way you can access this. So this main thoroughfare now is turning into a road where you have all of these kids going up and down, and you can only go in it one way or back out. The one on Hunt Street can be a 2-lane street. You can drive by it and see how nice it is. You cannot really drive by this and see how nice it is because it's set right in the middle of the conservation land. And if somebody is coming in and all these kids are coming down on their bikes, they have to then back out, which I think is a safety concern. If somebody's in that house and they want to leave and somebody else wants to come in, somebody has to back out, and you have all of these people also coming and going. So that's a safety concern that I just would like to bring to your attention. The other issue is that, and so there's a big difference between Hunt and here. Hunt is a 2-lane road. And this one, it isn't. It's really just a pathway now. The other issue, it's a conservation area, and there are signs. You know, if you walk down the snake trail, there are signs there for conservation. I wouldn't be here tonight if I knew this was a buildable lot. It's the concern of the community. This is not a buildable lot, and everybody, a lot of people are really in an uproar of building in this area that's been part of the community. We know it's the wetlands. We know it's in the flood zone. Where I live on Highland Ave, my house is actually in the flood zone because when we wanted to do some renovations, we had to go through many committees at conservation, and because my house is an inch in the flood zone. So to build in this area, in this conservation area, in the wetlands, we're very concerned how this is all going through. Excuse me, my mouth is dry. My question tonight is, if you pass this tonight, what happens with the meeting on Wednesday night with conservation? Originally, that meeting was first, and then it was rescheduled because they haven't been down to the site. Now, they have been down there, and they've done their research, and all of that is going to be discussed on Wednesday, and there's a lot of concerns. So if you approve this tonight, I'm very concerned about Wednesday night's meeting and all the, and the people who plan to attend, because I know a lot of people plan to attend. And I'm just throwing this out. I just don't have the information. If you approve this tonight, is this a done deal? Will conservation have any power with their concerns with the wetlands, with the conservation, with the safety issues, and the flood zone?
There are 2 issues, and so for folks who may show up on Wednesday night, The Conservation Commission will only be able to deal with issues of conservation and what falls within their jurisdiction. So when we talk about floodplain issues, when we talk about potential issues with conservation or proximity to the wetlands, that's what the Conservation Commission will deal with. They're not going to be able to deal with traffic. That's not their purview. That really is for us to decide whether we think that this will create too much traffic in the neighborhood or whether we think the driveway will unnecessarily impede access to the trail. Conservation Commission is not going to be concerned about those things because it doesn't fall under their jurisdiction. Does that answer your question?
Well, first of all, if you go down there, as far as the traffic and the trail, if you walk through that trail, you can see the water on both sides of it. So I would think Conservation would be concerned about it, because you can see it. It's wetlands. It's all wetlands down
If they
there.
believe that it passes through wetlands or in proximity to the wetlands where it falls within their jurisdiction, they would address that. Mr. Murphy, you wanted to add a comment?
Yeah, and I'm going to address her concern and why the meeting was canceled. This board has to first approve the LIP application. The process starts here. We approved that we would like to see affordable housing within a neighborhood. They then, the applicant, would have to go through both Conservation Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Many of your questions and concerns will be answered in some of those meetings, meaning the Zoning Board of Appeals. So you'll have an opportunity to discuss traffic. You'll have an opportunity to discuss the size of the driveway. What you're making a statement tonight, and I probably want to ask the applicant through the chair, you're saying, well, the kids would have to back up. Those are questions that will be answered at the Zoning Board of Appeals. How large is the driveway? Is it going to also accommodate folks who are walking at the same time? But this board is, I believe, it's what came first, the chicken or the egg. We have to approve whether we'd like to see affordable housing. The other other boards will actually be the regulatory boards in regard to how it's handled.
Okay.
Did
Thank
that
you,
help?
Mr. Murphy. Yes.
All right. So the approving affordable housing will not have any effect with the decisions with Conservation. Conservation could still deny this if this is in a flood zone or due to the wetlands.
If they believe that it does not, if the resources under their jurisdiction are not adequately protected,
Right.
they could issue a denial, yes.
Okay. Because I'm not against affordable housing, it's the area I'm concerned with. Because the other issue I just wanted to bring up, living on Highland, is that, Conservation gave everybody notice of these issues. So that's why I didn't understand the purpose of tonight's meeting, because we didn't receive any notice. The sewer and the water that they want to bring up to Highland Ave, since I've been living there, 2 other houses have been built, and it's been denied by Conservation. They will not allow, they didn't allow these other 2 builders to bring any sewer or water lines up due to the wetlands there. I don't have town water. I know that I could benefit from this. I could get town water down. I'd rather see lack of development in a conservation area versus
And
having
that'll be
town
for
water.
Conservation to decide, yes.
But what I'm saying is, just as far, I think that's good to know, that 2 families were not allowed to bring water or sewer through the same road that they're now asking to bring it through. They had to go up through Arlington Street and down the other way due to the wetlands and the conservation issues. And they just didn't know about this meeting tonight. So I guess my concern is there are so many rules with conservation, state rules, and with 40B housing, I'm concerned about putting it in the middle of wetlands and conservation in an area that this area is very popular, as you know, with the residents of Silver Beach, going through the snake trail, and kids spend time there, they hang around there, and I just want to bring those concerns to you. I don't think it's appropriate, and I think it's a real concern in the community that they find this inappropriate just for that area, that particular, especially since it's already been designated as conservation and there are so many issues with wetlands. I think that's it. I don't know if somebody else wants to speak.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe Celia, 95 Glen. So just from a picture standpoint, where am I in this? I'm actually the last house in on Glen, coming down the street. As Kevin knows, we grew up together, so we know each other very well. I've been here for probably 45 years. My father owns on the other side, Grove Street of the Snake Path. I call it the Snake Path. My concern, one concern I have is, she mentions the 40B of changing the regulations. That's really kind of my concern, is in normal situations, you wouldn't be able to, either the conservation would have rules, just like we mentioned, I heard earlier about some state rules that, you know, they put them in place. 40B kind of changes a lot of the regulations and rules. So the concern I have is, if we're going to play by the same rules that other people had, same thing on the construction. I have no problem with affordable housing. I think it's a great thing. I actually work in that space, actually, for assisted living and affordable housing. So the question I have for the committee, and actually probably the engineer, is you're probably at the end of Glen, right where the pump out station is, it ends and then goes into the Snake Path. There's probably another 100 to 150 feet before you actually get to the driveway. Today, I'm dealing with, it's a stone road. I'd love it to be paved. When the plows come down the city, they plow, and they plow all the road right up into the Snake Path and just leave it there. And every year, there's a huge mound. Who owns this new 100 and 150 feet? Who is going to plow it? Who is going to worry about drainage? Because that doesn't fall into the property line. That's now city-owned. So now we're extending the road by 150 feet. So my question is, who now owns that? Because what you're going to do now, the snow plows, if it's only 10 feet wide, they're just going to plow it down right into that and leave it there. And that...
Would the applicant care to address this question?
The gentleman's accurate on the length of the extension. It is about 100 to 120 feet from where the pump station is, where I think your driveway probably is, to this point where we start to turn off. And basically what we're doing is extending the same current driveway system that serves the gentleman's house, that additional 120 some odd feet, with a 10-foot wide, continue to be gravel surface that is currently maintained to the point of his driveway by the town, and the snow is left there as he described. The same process would continue. They would just plow it a little bit further and then leave it just past this driveway. So this is kind of being mischaracterized as a roadway extension. It's basically a new driveway that happens to be about 100 to 120 feet long from the current end of the roadway serving this gentleman's house. So we don't see there being any real difference in the methods of snow removal or anything like that. It'll just be a little bit longer section of roadway that needs to be plowed.
So just back to my question, who owns that road?
Glen Avenue is a private roadway. It doesn't meet town standards, so the town wouldn't accept it as a town road.
So a private road is owned by the residents on the road.
So I want to understand this on record. Glen, we own that road from all the way from Arlington down to that location?
All of the property owners along Glen Avenue own the road. So at this present time, whoever owns this parcel also owns to the middle of Glen Avenue.
So, again, Glen Ave is owned not by the city, by...
It is owned by all of the abutters collectively as a private road. All of the abutters to Glen Avenue own it.
And how does that affect the DPW's pumping station? That is, if you're saying we own the road, and they have, I'm just trying, I've never heard of I'll be honest with you, I've never heard, I can understand private ways, but that's a public road.
If you'd like to, Counselor. And We also have the town planner who might be able to provide more clarification on this.
Glen Avenue has not been taken as a public way. So the assumption is it's a private way. The ownership of it, you can't say for certain, in my opinion, that the abutters own it to the midpoint. That's something that you have to go back and look at a title examination and see if anybody reserved the ownership of the road years and years and years ago. Sometimes that happened. A lot of times in Falmouth it didn't. So if there was no reservation of the ownership by the original New Silver Beach developer or somebody else, then it is possible that the homeowners on either side own to the midpoint by statute, but not absolute. But regardless, it is a private road. And so the fact that people use this pathway doesn't necessarily mean that they have the right to do that. That's the custom, and that's what people do in the neighborhood. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a public rite of passage. So nobody here is saying that that shouldn't continue. Obviously, it sounds like it's something that's custom and people use it, and certainly it would benefit this property as well. But when we looked at this project, the fact that Glen is a private ways are maintained by the town. The snow is removed off of Glen, just as the abutter has indicated. So we don't expect that anything would change there. As far as the conservation issues go that Ms. Clark talked about, this is in an upland area. We're not depositing a building in the middle of wetlands, which seemed to be some indication that it was in wetlands. The project meets the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act for approval. All the setbacks are met. The Conservation Commission will be reviewing that. So it's not in wetlands, it's in upland. There are wetlands adjacent to the property, and that's why the Conservation Commission is reviewing it. But certainly this property owner does not want to interfere with anybody passing through there. We believe there's more than enough room in that driveway system for the few trips that are coming in and out of that property. And again, it's year-round. It's not just a summer rental. So you're not talking about, large summer use with multiple cars and then nobody there the rest of the year. This is a one-bedroom affordable unit suited for one tenant, could be two, but one tenant, and then a market rate unit which is 2 bedrooms. So it's not a high density type development. It's really 3 bedrooms, no different really than another single family home at the end of that street.
Mr. Curry, can you shed any additional light, or did the councilor do just fine?
I'll keep it just fine.
Thank you.
So could I continue on the question? Then I understand the house location is not on the wetlands, but on the road coming through on Glen, my understanding that splits directly through the wetlands, and I actually have some pictures to show you.
That will be addressed by conservation.
Okay,
It is not
that's
for
fine.
this board to worry about this evening.
I'm, obviously worried about the flooding and the, this drainage right now doesn't happen, and you're going to have.
And the Conservation Commission, if they choose to approve this, would probably address some of those issues. Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak this evening?
It's just on the road issue.
Please, no side conversations. Sir, if you'd like to speak.
Steve Capuccio, 88 Glen Avenue. I've been in the Falmouth area for 5 years. I wish I was here for 40 years, though, and would like to be here for 40 years. It's a great community and like being down here. Basically, I agree with everything that Ian and Joe said, and I do agree, Mr. Chairman. I think that Wednesday night we'll be able to talk about the water, but just wanted to take the opportunity to say that I am worried about the use of, the customary use of the snake path and the traffic that goes there. Since living there, that roadway is used up and down from about 7 o'clock in the morning all the way till it gets dark, with people going back and forth. So I hope that if this does continue, that there will be consideration to making sure that it is safe for children that they're going through there. The water issue is something that I am worried about, and I don't know how that can be addressed during construction, because there is quite a bit of water from that wetlands, and if they're going to put a building there, I'm worried that it may start pushing that over to what Joe was saying, the road and onto his property, or pushing it up into the marshland.
Again, those
or
are
into the
issues
other
that will be
properties, but
addressed
if
by
they are-
conservation.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, Ian. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone new, please? We want to get through everybody's questions, and then if there's if everyone's come through, then I'll let somebody up for a second crack at it. Is there anybody new who'd like to speak? All right.
I have one very quick question. I didn't know that Glen Road was private, but Glen, if you look at the area where they want to build and you go to the end of it, you cross Arlington Street, and then Glen Road continues all the way up. Is that part private too? So all of Glen Road is private?
That's perhaps getting out of the scope of our discussion here. We need to focus on this parcel, this application, and the approval thereof. As far as the rest of Glen Avenue, I would refer you to the town planner's office to get specific.
Wouldn't that be important if it's private or public, the road?
The full extent of Glen Avenue, no. This section here, we've already determined is private.
But would it be safe to assume then if one side's private, the rest of it all the way through is private?
It's not always the case.
Thank you.
I just want to say, over 50% of the roads in Falmouth are private roads. So you can pretty much determine that unless it's a connecting road like Wild Harbor Road or like Old Main Road in North Falmouth, those are town roads. But anything else in between is very likely a private road because most of the towns in Falmouth are. It just means that they haven't been brought up to the standards of the roads, and you have people who live on it haven't petitioned the town to take them as a town road, because the town won't take it unless it meets the town standards. But that's not really what I wanted to say. I wanted to really respond to your question about why are you here tonight and why are we hearing this? And it's because our job here, our role here, is simply to move this application forward. In other words, the Affordable Housing Committee looked at this application and said, we want to move this forward. So that it goes through the process. So now we take a look at it and we say, there are a lot of merits to this, it has merits, but it also has issues. But we need to move it forward and let the application go forward, which it then goes to the Conservation Commission, where all of the issues that you have raised tonight will be discussed and heard and determined by the Conservation Commission. But our job is to get it into the pipeline. Okay.
Mr. Murphy?
And I'd just like to reiterate a little bit, just for the neighbors, this is a friendly 40B. There are two different types. The applicant could have gone the regular 40B route, and you could have had 4 units on that property and only 25% of affordable housing. The friendly 40B provides for a minimum of 30%. So if the applicant wanted to do this process, they would have had to have bumped up more units for affordable, so that the impact is much less this way than a normal 40B. I also want you to know that development in any part of this community, it tends to be a lightning rod, but this board's role is to try to facilitate good, clean, affordable housing, and that is not, we call it workforce housing. You have to be able to pay $1,100 a month. It's not cheap, it's not subsidized housing, it is affordable housing. And there is going to be plenty of opportunities for you folks to make comments going through the process. I will not kid you, this is still a 40B. It is regulated differently than a normal building lot. However, this board in this community has charged this board with trying to develop as much affordable housing as appropriate in this community. And we set a goal in our policy statement to come up with 10% affordable housing in this community. You will have an opportunity to be heard as you go through the process, but I think it's important this board continues to follow their charge, as we have in the past, to put affordable housing, when appropriate, in areas to be able to move forward. So I'd like to make a motion to approve this LIP application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. Your feedback is appreciated. Next item on our agenda is an application for change of manager at the Seacoast Shores Association. The applicant or the applicant's representative.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Good evening.
My name is Stephen McLaughlin. I'm the attorney for Seacoast Shores. And I find myself here once again. Since we were last before you and the board voted 4-1 in favor of the seasonal liquor license for Seacoast Shores, the application has gone forward to the ABCC, at which time an issue arose with regard to a query report. And as the board members are aware, query reports are confidential, have to be kept that way. So I'm not at liberty to speak at any detail about that tonight. I don't want to be sued, and I'm sure the board doesn't want to be sued. In any event, I have spoken with Mr. Ralph Sacramone, who's the executive director of the ABCC, about how to address this, and this process that we're going through now to change the manager is exactly what the ABCC instructed me to do as far as the process goes. It's unfortunate that this arose because the association did hire a private review company to do a background check, including a query report. That was done, it was paid for. That company came back and said there are no issues whatsoever. The person that was involved did reveal some things in the past, but his understanding was of one outcome. In fact, the query report said otherwise. I've seen the query report, I've spoken to the ABCC, I've gone to the courts, I've seen the probation reports, so it is an issue. So what we are proposing is to renominate Arlene Schubert, who is a resident of the association. And she's the one that was originally proposed as the manager in the first go-around that we had. And Selectman Flynn, it was you who raised a concern, if I recall correctly, about the fact that she was a Minnesota resident and a Massachusetts resident during the summer months. And your concern was, how could she be a manager in the winter months? I think that the seasonal change of the application takes care of that. Her children have graduated from high school. They now attend college here in Massachusetts. So she's staying in this area. She will be in this area. I want to make this unequivocal. She will be in this area in Falmouth during the period of the seasonal license. So if there's any question about that whatsoever, I want to end that. The first time we had the vote, which was then reneged because of the voting issue, the application nevertheless went into the ABCC and they acted on it. They did their investigation, they did their background check of Arlene Schubert, and everything went through with flying colors. So the ABCC has absolutely no issues with regard to Ms. Schubert. So I think that the information is here now for a second time, for the first time, from Mrs. Moffett, but she's a well-qualified person. She's acting as a de facto general manager or assistant general manager of the association clubhouse now. She's putting in about 35 hours a week. Last week she put in 50. So she's extremely well qualified and experienced with the clubhouse for the past 2 years. She is Safe Serve certified, she is TIP certified, and I think she'll be a great manager. And I'm urging the board to please approve it so we can finally get on with our liquor license.
Okay.
I move approval for the change of manager.
And I second.
Okay. Any discussion amongst the board? Any questions?
Is she still a director?
Yes.
Just, Mr. Chairman, I need to do a disclosure. I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license.
Did we receive an email about alcohol being served at or being brought to Seacoast Shores during the time of this pending license. Am I remembering that correctly?
There was a question about that, and I don't know if it'd be appropriate for us to discuss that at this point with the change of manager, or if it would be something for a future agenda. But I did ask Mr. Suso to look into that for the board.
Okay, thank you.
We're not aware of that, but we'd like to hear about it, too.
We'll keep you informed.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions from the board? All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you
Any
very much.
opposition? Unanimous. Next item on our agenda, application, sign variance, Molly's Parking.
Received a new email. There's a late email from the design review committee today.
I don't know that I did see that. It is in here, at noontime?
Yeah.
Design Review Committee decided to reconsider its decision for the years described in the above letter. Committee will extend its approval of the signs to be used at the corner of Depot Avenue and North Main Street, as well as the sign on premises. This approval is for the remainder of this year only and withdrawn for next year. We hope the applicant will consider remaking the first sign to have a professional appearance that will not harm the historic neighborhood. The second sign on premises is in better condition and will not need renovation.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
You're all set. Excuse me. Next item on the agenda, minutes of meetings. We have minutes for public session July 1.
Move approval of the minutes of July 1st.
Second.
We have motion and a second for the minutes as presented. No corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? It's unanimous. All right, and we have no executive session minutes to discuss or release this evening.
On the minutes of July 1st, I just did want to comment on what a great job Carol Sutherland did in capturing the discussion of the turbine. I mean, I just was very impressed at how well that had been captured and something that we went over, I think, in great detail and fairly quickly.
Thank you.
I second that.
All right, for our summary of actions, and I apologize, folks, it was pointed out to me too late that I did promise everyone numbers on these. We do have to number these to make it a little bit easier, so I will discuss that with Mr. Suso and office staff. Well, I'll just read through
They're
these.
approved unless we have an issue, right? Isn't that what it says? It says they are.
Correct, and this line here, again, this was based on you may recall the email that I had forwarded to all of you from town council. This line is added based on town council's recommendation, and basically, it is, I'm going to read through these as we usually do and ask that if anyone wants to hold it, we can. But this line is for the public's edification, so that the public understands that anything under the summary will be approved unless there is some other action taken by the board, and that was the recommendation of town council.
I don't know, that doesn't really, may I speak?
Oh, go ahead.
That doesn't really change anything. I mean, we kind of did this so that we wouldn't have to go through all this, and that people could see what they were, and if we had issues, we would let you know so that we could take them up. But no, I have no issues with any of them. And I thought that they were all going to be approved unless any one of us notified you that we wanted to bring it up and have a discussion.
Prior to Thursday.
Prior to Thursday. Yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, they're all approved.
Well, we still have to make the vote to approve, and I do know that Mr. Murphy would like to make his requisite disclosure for some of these. So, again, keeping in past practice, the only reason this line is here is because, again, the change of wording for the agenda itself, most of these items used to say approve request, because the assumption was that it would be on the agenda for approval. And Mr. Duffy suggested the line here, the following items are expected to be approved unless held for discussion. He suggested that for the public's edification, not necessarily to say that we're automatically going to approve it without a vote.
Well, I thought that's what it really meant, that we were automatically going to approve it. Well, then we should take this up then at another time and not waste time discussing it tonight, because I think we have to come to agreement about what we really think that this ought to be. And I thought from our discussion that Saturday, the idea was we wanted to turn that all over to the town manager's office.
And that will
And then you
eventually,
turned
yes.
that to, so somehow we need to get to that.
That is still in
Okay,
process.
that's still in process,
And
okay.
at that point, we won't even have this on our agenda.
Okay, good.
Because it will be in the town manager's hands for approval.
Town council is reviewing that process
Yes.
by which the board will need to act to formalize that occurring.
Maybe I can help with expedience and do a blanket disclosure on the summary of actions and say that I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic liquor license, and there are some one-day licenses on this thing, so I won't have to hold it as.
Okay, but
Go ahead. No, sir.
It's okay.
I'd like to hold or have discussion about the Cape Cod Bike Tour with REI.
The REI, okay.
And 2 discussions on the Instar petition to install.
All right. So with the exception of the request for a special event, the REI Cape Cod Bike Tour, and the NSTAR petitions to install 4-inch underground conduit on Bywater Court and Harbor Avenue.
I move all those other summary of actions.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the items except for the 3 that have been held by Ms. Moffett. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, Ms. Moffett.
Is there anyone here from REI? No? I'm concerned about what happens when our people, our residents that are coming into Falmouth to use our bike path, if this interferes with their regular routine of using the bike path, and now there is going to be an organized program on 3 Saturdays, and my question was, what's the interference?
About 3 years ago, we had a presentation from REI. They came here. They are a presence in Falmouth.
Yes.
They are a contributor to the bikeway. They financially support the bikeway. And so we agreed that what they were doing was, and the Bikeways Committee was here too, that they all agreed that this is consistent with what we want to see happen in Falmouth. It helps bring people to the town. And it's been going on for 3 years and no one's had a problem with it. But I can appreciate your question and your concern, not having been here at the time when this whole presentation. But it probably wouldn't hurt at some point if maybe we have her come back after 3 years and give us a report on what they've been doing, how the tours work out, what kind of issues they have, what the contributions have been that they've made to the bikeway and to the town. Because
I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
I would like to hear that. Well, that was my purpose on that one. And then installing the 4-inch underground conduit at Bywater and Harbor. Is there any financial benefit that comes to Falmouth if this is approved and agreed upon? Or this is just part of a process of someone asking and we accept, and there isn't anything financial?
To the best of my knowledge, there's no financial benefit to the town. It's merely a service allowing the utility to perform that upgrade.
Have we ever considered having a financial benefit to the town because we're saying, yes, you just go ahead with this? Just for you. It's not something.
It has not come up during my tenure. I'll be happy to review with town council as to whether we are able to do that.
Okay.
I'm not certain what exactly what the circumstances are here, but I'll be happy to explore that.
Okay, that was the purpose for the whole. Okay, thank you.
So for these 3 items then, how would the board like to proceed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 3 items that were held, the REI bike path use and the 2 NSTAR petitions for underground conduit. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No. All right.
Okay.
And that brings us to the next item on our agenda. Individual selectmen's reports. Would anyone like to share anything?
Just this Saturday, I will be attending, both as a selectman and in my position with the science school, their 100th anniversary, and present the proclamation that we declared 2 weeks ago.
Well, I would say that, that Becky and I attended the dedication of the ramp at Old Silver Beach, and that was really very well attended. The sheriff's office worked with the Falmouth Military Support Group, and the ramp, the total cost was about $25,000, and with the contributions of the sheriffs, the inmates doing all the work, and they do really good work, don't they? And the fundraising from the support group, they were able to have that done, which is, and it was dedicated to Matt Gallagher, Sergeant Matt Gallagher, who died in Afghanistan. Anyways, it was a great event. And I went to the dedication of the Rachel Carson statue in Woods Hole yesterday, and there were about 150 people there. And the thing that was nice about it is there was a sea breeze, so even though it was like 90 degrees, you weren't roasting and decomposing in the sun. It was really an excellent event. And a few other things, but I can't remember all of them, but those are the really highlights, I think, of the week.
Anyone else?
I think the service center that is doing the Thursday evening
Oh,
meals
yes,
at a
Falmouth
different,
Eats Together.
is a very pleasant activity for all residents of Falmouth. And we were at the Methodist Church this past Thursday. I'm not sure where it is this Thursday, but it moves around. And that's all volunteer. Every bit of that is volunteer. And it's a good meal.
I was going to say, what the heck?
And the night
I
we
know
were
some of the
there,
cooks, so
they had the highest turnout. The night we were there, over 300 people came that night.
It was.
And about 75% of the people who were there are clients of the service center. And the other 25% people like us that were just going to have fun and sitting down and meet people we've never met before, and just sit down and have dinner, and it was great. And it's really a good thing to do. So I highly recommend it.
Anyone else? Just a note, and you folks have seen the email, that I did have an opportunity to sit down with some of the, call them wind turbine proponents this past week, to share their concerns and their perspective on the situation regarding the operation of the 2 wind turbines. And it was very helpful, and I was glad to have the opportunity to speak with them. So, okay. Mr. Suso?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple items. The board will recall that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, as it is known by its acronym, is in the process of completing the updating of the flood hazard maps for our area. We've just been advised by FEMA that they are placing the required public notices in local newspapers to officially put this process in motion and allow for affected local landowners to appeal the determination of the FEMA engineers as to areas inside or outside designated flood hazard boundaries. This, of course, has considerable implications for flood insurance costs and building costs for these same properties. Given Falmouth's coastal location and multiple interior water bodies, a sizable number of the town's private properties are potentially impacted. In general, this process is resulting in the expanding of the flood hazard zones to include a greater number of properties. We are advised that 90 days are set aside by federal regulation for this landowner appeal process. In conversations with FEMA representatives, bottom line, we are told that the town may be copied with landowners' appeals, official appeals to FEMA. However, the town is not, of course, in a position to evaluate or assess the quality of any such appeals. All copies of any such appeals which we receive are planned to be transmitted to FEMA for that agency's final analysis and their final determination of all appeals, and stay tuned for that. I'm also pleased to confirm that the long-awaited repaving and reconstruction of major portions of Wild Harbor Road has essentially been completed. Some minor work remains related to NSTAR's relocation of a few utility poles out of the sidewalk areas, as well as some minor repair and maintenance to some underground storm drain lines. The storm drain work is anticipated for this fall after the tourist season has ended. My thanks to John Lyons, Peter McConerty, Ray Jack, and the DPW team for their work on this project. I also want to echo some earlier thanks to Town Planner Brian Curry and Town Engineer Peter McConerty for their ongoing assistance in the matter of the proposed bikeway construction, the connector from Shining Sea Bikeway to Catherine Lee Bates Road intersection in collaboration and cooperation with the Steamship Authority. We appreciate all that fine staff work on the part of our colleagues. Also, to piggyback on Selectman Flynn's comment, I was happy to attend the dedication unveiling in a ceremony and observe it as one of the well over 100 observers that Selectman Flynn commented on this unveiling of the life-size statue of Rachel Carson at the MBL Beach in Woods Hole. My compliments to all involved in this extraordinary multi-year effort, including, as noted, Selectman Pat Flynn, who's been a member of the organizing committee, I believe, since its inception. An incredible number of impressive individuals came together on this, including all the major scientific organizations in Woods Hole. It's really quite an impressive process, an impressive memorial statue, and it's very gratifying to note that the seeds for the incredible impact environmentally and otherwise by Rachel Carson on this country and throughout the world. Those seeds were planted in Woods Hole and nurtured in Woods Hole, and it says a whole lot about the town of Falmouth, Woods Hole, and all the great things that are happening scientifically and otherwise here. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Can I ask one question in the report, Mr. Chairman? It was my understanding originally that Wild Harbor Road was going to be paved to its entirety to the private section. Did that change because of the wetlands?
I don't know the answer to that. Selectman Murphy, let me find that out and get back to you. I know that adjustments were made as a result of cooperative efforts with the Conservation Committee and wetlands issues. Whether that limited the paving from what we originally anticipated, I don't know, but I will find that out and get back to you and other members of the board.
Great, thank you, because it appears it's only half done. That's why I'm asking that question. Okay, thank you.
I just have one thing to bring up. You have probably all received a number of emails from various people, mostly Ron Beatty, about the change in the governance of Barnstable County, and the fact that there's a charter review committee that's currently meeting, and apparently the questions that he has raised in terms of the selectmen and the various towns on the Cape, asking them to weigh in on what their opinions are regarding the proposals. And there are actually 18 proposals from the special committee that looked at county government, but there are only a few proposals related to governance. So now I just wanted you to know that I've been asked by the Board of Selectmen in Bourne if I would come and make a presentation on it. And then those who have a different point of view have been asked to come and make a presentation. So if you want a presentation on what's going on in the Charter Review Committee, I'm sure our representative to the Assembly, who's Julie Taylor, who is also on the Charter Review Committee, might be very happy to come in and talk about it. And then if you wanted to hear from people who are on the other side of the issue, somebody like the Speaker of the Assembly might be willing to do that. It's up to the board if you want to hear that presentation on the change in county governance. There are people who are willing to do that. Okay. Because I know a number of towns, Chatham, Truro, Provincetown, Brewster, Barnstable, I think Barnstable too, they've asked to have somebody come and just explain to them, because eventually, if it does move forward, it will be on the ballot. So whatever the Charter Review Committee is going to recommend, if it's a change in the charter, it has to be approved by the legislature, and then it has to go on the ballot for all the voters. So think about it if you would like to have it. It wouldn't take long. 15 minutes would be
It's
the
always
most.
good to have new information. As I raise up from signing.
Right. From signing?
Yeah, I'm still signing.
All right, then. Any correspondence that the board would like to review or highlight? All right, with that, it's the end of our agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection?
Nestled in a classic New England setting amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.